Chapter 1. Unsheath the Sword. I have taught you. Lu Feng unexpectedly found himself reborn into a realm of cultivation. And fortunate enough to possess both fire and wood dual spiritual roots from birth, he caught the eye of the esteemed master of the Danding Peak of Yunxiao Sect, who took him as a personal disciple. However, Lu Feng's progress in cultivation was rather sluggish, and his aptitude for alchemy was mediocre. Coupled with his distinct way of thinking and demeanor, which set him apart from the other cultivators in this world, he was regarded as an outcast and faced exclusion from his peers. As Lu Feng reached the age of 20, still languishing in the great perfection of the qi refinement stage, the master of Danding Peak contemplated abandoning him, deeming him a waste. Subsequently, the master conspired with the head of the Xianjian Peak to orchestrate a scheme that would cripple Lu Feng's cultivation and expel him from the sect. Yet, this act of the sect would lead to a monumental shift in Lu Feng's destiny. After leaving the sect, Lu Feng awakened the Alchemy Expulsion return system. Utilizing this system, he embarked on a path of vengeance and resurgence. In the land of Qishao, at the southern domain of Yunxiao Sect, atop Danding Peak, a youth of merely 10 years stood before a bound wolf-like demon beast, momentarily at a loss. Behind him stood a stern middle-aged man, who suddenly bellowed, "Lu Feng, why are you still dawdling? Unsheath your sword. I have taught you this." Prompted by the man's urgency, the boy gritted his teeth and tightly grasped his long sword, thrusting it towards the beast's neck. With a splatter, blood sprayed onto the boy's face, and a look of satisfaction crossed the middle-aged man's features. "Excellent. In the face of an enemy, you must strike with lethal precision, just as you did now. Do you understand?" The boy, trembling, fell to the ground and nervously swallowed before responding, "Why yes, I shall remember my master's teachings." 10 years later, within the Hall of Justice, a group of elders and 2 peak masters gazed solemnly at a handsome young man standing in the center of the hall. "Lu Feng, speak. How did you inflict such injuries upon my disciple?" inquired the furious master of Xianjian Peak. Lu Feng surveyed the elders present, noting their cold, indifferent gazes fixed upon him. His eyes then drifted to Chen Hai, the master of Danding Peak, who was none other than his own mentor. At that moment, Chen Hai's eyes betrayed nothing but disdain. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Lu Feng cautiously replied, "Master Yi, this matter is not entirely my fault." The Master Yi he referred to was Yi Xianming of the Xianjian Peak. Upon hearing Lu Feng's response, Yi Xuanming's expression darkened, and he retorted, "If it is not your fault, then whose fault could it possibly be?" The surrounding elders chimed in, vociferously condemning Lu Feng's actions. Some even recounted past misdeeds, intent on nailing him to the pillar of shame. Faced with their scorn, Lu Feng could only shake his head in resignation. "Who among my family understands? The truth is, yesterday, a group of disciples from the neighboring Xianjian Peak visited our Danding Peak, and by sheer coincidence, I was in the midst of alchemy. Despite my attempts to dissuade them, these young brothers insisted on drawing closer to observe the process of potion creation. Unfortunately, as they approached the alchemical furnace, a tremendous explosion erupted, followed by anguished cries. I was momentarily stunned, and upon investigation, I discovered that the furnace had exploded. You cannot imagine the horrific scene that unfolded. It was truly ghastly." Lu Feng succinctly recounted the events of the previous day, though his manner of narration caused the elders and the 2 peak masters to furrow their brows. At that moment, Yi Xianming, the master of Xianjian Peak, coldly remarked, "So, according to your account, my severely injured disciples brought this upon themselves?" With that, he directed his Yuan Ying realm pressure toward Lu Feng. Although he only revealed a fraction of his oppressive aura, it was far beyond what a mere 9th-layer qi refining practitioner like Lu Feng could withstand. Under the terrifying weight, Lu Feng felt as though an enormous mountain had suddenly descended upon him, and the insurmountable pressure caused beads of sweat to pour from him until he finally knelt on one knee with a thud. Yet, in the face of Yi Xuanming's intimidation, Lu Feng exhibited no fear, for the injuries inflicted upon his fellow disciples were not his intention. Just as it seemed Lu Feng would succumb to the pressure, Chen Hai, who had remained silent until then, abruptly waved his hand, dispersing the oppressive force. He then addressed Yi Xianming, saying, "Master Yi, although this wayward disciple of mine is indeed unruly by nature, considering that he acted without malice, I implore you to spare his life." Upon hearing Chen Hai's words, Yi Xianming flicked his sleeve and coldly replied, "For the sake of Master Chen, I shall spare you from death, Lu Feng, but you shall not escape punishment." "Where is the elder of the law enforcement hall?" As he spoke, an elderly man with brown hair stepped forward and cupped his hands, inquiring, "Master Yi, what is your command?" Yi Xianming cast a frigid glance at Lu Feng before addressing the elder of the law enforcement hall. "Elder Wang, what punishment is warranted for Lu Feng's actions?" Upon hearing this, Lu Feng's eyes narrowed. It appeared that Yi Xianming was indeed intent on his ruin. Elder Wang responded loudly. Lu Feng deliberately injured his fellow disciples in this incident. According to sect rules, he must be stripped of his status as an inner disciple and face 10 years of solitary reflection on the back mountain. Hearing this punishment, Lu Feng's brow furrowed. He had been taken in by his master, Chen Hai, to Yunxiao sect at a young age and had trained as an inner disciple ever since. Without this status, he would have no chance for redemption. As Lu Feng contemplated his next move, Elder Wang continued. Moreover, Lu Feng has repeatedly violated sect regulations and, during the last sect competition, intentionally caused an explosion that left dozens of disciples severely injured. Therefore, I believe he should be stripped of his inner disciple status, have his cultivation abolished, and be expelled from the sect as a disciplinary measure. At this pronouncement, Lu Feng's eyes flickered with indignation. He had begun his cultivation journey at the tender age of 10 and had labored for a decade to achieve the pinnacle of qi refining. Just as he was on the verge of breaking through to foundation establishment, how could he possibly accept such devastating news? Thus, Lu Feng immediately protested loudly. I refuse to accept this. During the last sect competition, I was forced into a situation where I had to explode the furnace. Who could have foreseen that a senior from the Xianjian Peak would seek to kill me? After speaking, Lu Feng turned his gaze towards his master, Chen Hai, realizing that no one could save him but his master. Yet, Chen Hai's expression remained as cold as snow, completely disregarding Lu Feng's pleading gaze. At that moment, Yi Xianming, the master of Xianjian Peak, coldly declared, I concur with Elder Wang's suggestion. Following his statement, the other elders expressed their unanimous support for the proposal put forth by the law enforcement elder. Ultimately, all eyes turned towards Chen Hai. Should he give his assent, Lu Feng would have no hope of redemption. Alas, I must be blind to have taken on such a wayward disciple. Very well. Let us proceed according to Elder Wang's suggestion. With that, Chen Hai transformed into a beam of light and departed from the law enforcement hall. As Chen Hai vanished, Lu Feng felt as though his soul had been shattered. No, this cannot be. Master, why have you abandoned your disciple? Though Lu Feng's heart burned with resentment, the elders of the law enforcement hall did not cease their judgment. Elder Wang then proclaimed loudly, I hereby announce that Lu Feng, the direct disciple of Danding Peak, has repeatedly maliciously harmed fellow disciples. His status as a direct disciple is hereby revoked, his cultivation is nullified, all assets are confiscated, and he is expelled from the sect. After delivering this verdict, Yi Xianming swiftly approached Lu Feng and struck him in the abdomen with a single palm. In an instant, Lu Feng was sent flying like a kite with its string cut. Simultaneously, a powerful force shattered his dantian, and this energy continued to circulate throughout his body, dispersing all the spiritual energy within him. Originally at the peak of the qi refinement stage, Lu Feng was instantly reduced to an ordinary person. As he felt the drastic change in his body, Lu Feng attempted to cry out, but could not suppress a mouthful of blood that erupted from his lips. With a spurt, he was left gasping. Seeing that Lu Feng had lost all his cultivation, Yi Xianming sneered. Ah, Lu Feng. This is the consequence of offending our Xianjian Peak. With that, he turned his back and departed. In that moment, Lu Feng could only glare at him with eyes filled with intense resentment. Shortly thereafter, 2 disciples from the law enforcement hall approached and confiscated all of his magical treasures and storage bags. They then escorted him to the foot of the mountain and unceremoniously discarded him into the wilderness. Before leaving, one of the disciples mockingly remarked, Ah, Brother Lu, in gratitude for your previous care, I present you with this pill to prevent you from starving at the mountainous gate. With that, he tossed a green pill towards Lu Feng and then soared away on his sword. Staring at the pill on the ground and feeling utterly powerless, Lu Feng's mind became a whirlwind of confusion. He recalled the moment he first joined the sect, when his master Chen Hai had told him that alchemists were not only powerful but also held in high regard. Yet now, he found himself stripped of his cultivation and humiliated by a fellow disciple with a mere pill. The anger within him surged ever stronger. An alchemist, huh? Not even a dog. Ding. Congratulations to the host for awakening the tenfold return system for alchemical explosions. Chapter 2. The Alchemist's Pursuit. An alchemist, huh? Not even a dog would. Ding. Congratulations to the host for awakening the Alchemy explosive return system. Ding. The system is activated, granting the host a beginner's gift pack. Ding. This system is specifically designed to assist alchemists, returning rewards based on the alchemist's cultivation level. Currently, the host is at the qi refining stage, with a return multiplier of 10 times. Suddenly, a series of unfamiliar mechanical sounds echoed in Lu Feng's mind, leaving him momentarily stunned. Even the anger that had surged within him dissipated. After a long pause, he finally came to his senses, exclaiming with joy, Indeed, I am an alchemist. I revel in the exhilarating sensation of constant explosions, just as Lu Feng was basking in his delight. The system's voice resonated once more in his mind. Ding. Would the host like to open the beginner's gift pack? After a brief contemplation, Lu Feng decisively affirmed, yes. Open it now? He had no choice. He was completely broke, with only the fasting pills gifted by a disciple from the enforcement hall remaining. Thus, this beginner's gift pack arrived just in time. Ding. Congratulations to the host for opening the beginner's gift pack, acquiring 10 cubic meters of system space and a small, humble furnace. Upon hearing the system's notification, Lu Feng was left puzzled. He understood the 10 cubic meters of system space, but what was this small, humble furnace? The name sounded rather peculiar. Hey system, how am I supposed to utilize this system space? And what exactly is this small, humble furnace? Ding. To use the system space, the host merely needs to concentrate their thoughts. Additionally, the system space cannot store living beings. As for the small furnace, its purpose must be discovered by the host themselves. After processing the system's response, Lu Feng finally grasped the situation. With a mere thought, a 10 cubic meter space materialized within his consciousness, revealing a jet-black circular furnace nestled inside. Upon witnessing this, Lu Feng concentrated once again, and the dark furnace materialized in his hands. Wow, this system space is far more convenient than a storage bag, he exclaimed, carefully examining the furnace in his grasp. The furnace was less than a meter in diameter, entirely black, and its material was unknown to him, judging by its appearance. It seemed to belong to a certain type of alchemical furnace. Yet, Lu Feng had never seen one so diminutive. After observing for a while, Lu Feng promptly realized his current location. Without hesitation, he returned the small furnace to the system space. He was still outside the gates of Azure Sect. If the cultivators inside were to catch sight of this small furnace, they would undoubtedly snatch it away. Until he fully grasped the furnace's capabilities, he needed to exercise caution. No longer a direct disciple of Azure Sect, he would have to rely entirely on himself for all his future cultivation needs. After stowing away the small furnace, Lu Feng turned back to cast a glance at Azure Sect, a glimmer of cold determination flashing in his eyes. Azure Sect, Yi Xianming, Shanhai, remember this well. The day I ascend to Yunxiao again shall be your day of reckoning. With that, Lu Feng flicked his sleeve and strode towards the distant mountains and forests. In truth, Lu Feng is a traveler from Earth, having arrived in this realm known as Qishao continent through a method akin to reincarnation. Possessing a dual affinity for wood and fire, he caught the attention of Chun Haifeng, the leader of Yunxiao sect. However, his aptitude for cultivation is rather mediocre, preventing him from achieving the foundation establishment stage even after a decade of practice. This may very well explain why he was ultimately forsaken by Chen Hai. Furthermore, with the soul of an earthling, Lu Feng's demeanor and conduct starkly contrast with those of the cultivators in this world, leading to his ostracization by his fellow disciples from a young age. After departing from Yunxiao sect, Lu Feng journeyed to a nearby cultivation market known as Yangxianfeng. He had visited this marketplace several times before, albeit in the company of Chen Hai. It is noteworthy that this market is also an asset of Yunxiao sect, albeit populated by numerous independent cultivators. As he approached Yangxianfeng, Lu Feng felt as though his legs were no longer his own. The arduous journey had taken him the better part of a day, a true torment for an ordinary person. Heaving heavily, Lu Feng resolved that he must re-enter the qi refinement stage. Otherwise, life would become unbearably difficult. Gritting his teeth, he stepped into the market. Recalling from memory, he knew that many shops within Yangxianfeng were seeking workers. While the remuneration was modest, it would at least provide him with a place to settle. With little capital to venture further, it seemed prudent to recuperate here for a while. Throughout his journey, Lu Feng had attempted various communications with his system, yet it remained unresponsive no matter how he inquired. This indicated that his system was likely not one of exceptional intelligence. It only spoke when specific conditions were met, such as during a failed alchemical attempt. Indeed, the system bore the name Tenfold Return System for Alchemical Explosions. Resolving to set aside these concerns, he decided to first find a place to reside. With that thought, Lu Feng began to explore the marketplace. After a thorough observation, he noted the diverse array of shops, each offering various services, including recruitment for spiritual herb cultivators, spirit beast tamers, and apprentices in weapon forging and alchemy. Lu Feng was well acquainted with these secondary professions of cultivation, and he possessed substantial expertise in alchemy. Previously, he had been a first-tier senior alchemist at Yunxiao sect, nearing the threshold of second-tier status. First-tier alchemists can concoct pills suitable for qi refinement practitioners, while second-tier alchemists possess the remarkable ability to create pills for foundation establishment cultivators, including the precious foundation establishment pill. After careful contemplation, Lu Feng resolved to return to his original profession as an alchemical apprentice. Given his current lack of cultivation, he had no choice but to start anew as an apprentice. With determination, he entered a shop called Dan Yuan Pavilion. Upon stepping inside, He discovered that the apothecary was quite expansive, spanning 2 levels, with the first floor alone covering several hundred square meters. At that moment, a short attendant approached with a smile and inquired, "Esteemed senior, may I ask what elixir you are seeking?" Lu Feng appeared remarkably handsome and stood at an impressive height of approximately 1.80 meters. Although his magical artifacts and storage bags had been seized by the Yunxiao sect, his attire still bore the distinguished air of a disciple of a sect. Clearing his throat awkwardly, Lu Feng asked, "Excuse me, do you have openings for alchemy apprentices here?" Upon hearing Lu Feng's words, the attendant seemed momentarily taken aback, then furrowed his brow and replied, "Indeed, our establishment is seeking alchemy apprentices. However, a certain level of experience in elixirs is required. Might I inquire if you possess such experience?" Noticing the attendant's sudden shift in demeanor, even addressing him as fellow cultivator, Lu Feng responded with a hint of resignation, "I naturally have experience in elixirs. Otherwise, I would not have come to apply for the position of alchemy apprentice." The attendant scrutinized Lu Feng once more and then said, "Very well. Please wait here for a moment while I fetch the shopkeeper to discuss this with you." "Thank you for your assistance," Lu Feng replied. The attendant turned and walked towards the inner chambers, muttering under his breath, "Dressed quite well, yet turns out to be a pauper." Lu Feng paid no heed to the attendant's remarks. After a few minutes of waiting, the attendant returned, accompanied by a middle-aged man. "This is the one applying for the position of alchemy apprentice," the attendant indicated, pointing at Lu Feng. Seeing this, Lu Feng offered a respectful bow to the shopkeeper and smiled. "I am Lu Feng, pleased to meet you." He chose not to reveal his true name, considering it a prudent measure for himself. The middle-aged shopkeeper appraised Lu Feng and remarked, "Lu Feng, you seem devoid of any cultivation. How then? Do you claim to possess experience in elixirs?" Typically, even an alchemy apprentice would have reached at least the first or second level of qi refinement. At that moment, Lu Feng had no cultivation level, which raised the shopkeeper's suspicions. With a confident smile, Lu Feng replied, "If you doubt my abilities, feel free to test me." "Very well. Follow me," the shopkeeper responded. They proceeded to the inner chamber, where the shopkeeper retrieved 3 elixirs and 3 spirit herbs from his storage bag and placed them on the table. "Lu Feng, since you wish to be tested, please identify these elixirs and herbs," the shopkeeper challenged. Lu Feng glanced at the items on the table and confidently stated, "These 3 elixirs are the Qi Gathering Pill, Spirit Transformation Pill, and Body Refinement Pill, all of which are first-tier elixirs." Upon hearing Lu Feng accurately name the elixirs, a glimmer of interest sparked in the shopkeeper's eyes. "Well answered. Now what about these 3 spirit herbs?" Lu Feng smiled and replied, "These 3 spirit herbs are the primary materials for crafting these elixirs, namely Earth Spirit Herb, Yellow Mysterious Leaf, and Reed Herb." The shopkeeper nodded, revealing a look of satisfaction. "It appears you do indeed possess experience in elixirs. With that established, allow me to inform you about the remuneration for alchemy apprentices at our establishment." "Please, enlighten me," Lu Feng responded. "Firstly, as an alchemy apprentice, one receives complimentary accommodation and meals, along with a monthly stipend of 2 low-grade spirit stones. Moreover, purchasing elixirs from our establishment grants a generous discount of 5%. Lu Feng nodded thoughtfully and continued, "What additional work requirements accompany these benefits?" Noticing Lu Feng's inquiry into the specifics of the job, the middle-aged shopkeeper felt a surge of joy, sensing that Lu Feng was likely inclined to join their Dan Yuan pavilion. He replied slowly, "As an alchemy apprentice, your primary duty will be to assist our alchemists in concocting potions. The precise tasks will be conveyed to you by the alchemists themselves. Furthermore, it is imperative to maintain confidentiality regarding any operations of our establishment." After absorbing this information, Lu Feng understood that the role of an alchemy apprentice resembled that of a potion boy within a sect, essentially serving as an assistant to the alchemists. Grateful for the shopkeeper's insights, he inquired, "May I ask for your esteemed surname?" The shopkeeper chuckled, "You may call me Wang." He then added, "What are your thoughts on the terms for the alchemy apprentice position, young brother Lu Feng?" After a brief contemplation, Lu Feng responded, "I accept. I shall take on the role of alchemy apprentice." Upon hearing this, shopkeeper Wang beamed and promptly produced a contract, saying, "In that case, let us seal this agreement with your handprint." Lu Feng scrutinized the contract, finding it consistent with what shopkeeper Wang had previously disclosed. Without hesitation, he pressed his handprint upon it. His eagerness to become an alchemy apprentice stemmed from 2 desires: to secure a place to stay and to swiftly test the capabilities of the system. According to the system's stipulations, he needed to experience a potion explosion to trigger the system's return functionality. Thus, becoming an alchemy apprentice was the most expedient route. After finalizing the contract, shopkeeper Wang personally escorted him to an alchemy chamber in the rear courtyard. Upon entering the room, Lu Feng observed the alchemy furnace ablaze with fervor. while a middle-aged cultivator deftly manipulated beast fire to concoct potions beside it. Noticing this, shopkeeper Wang gestured for silence, indicating that Lu Feng should remain quiet. The two stood by, watching the alchemist complete the potion brewing process. An hour swiftly elapsed, and Lu Feng, standing nearby, suddenly caught a whiff of a burnt odor. Alarm bells rang in his mind. It seemed that the batch of potions had been ruined. Moments later, the middle-aged alchemist ceased his endeavors and waved a hand, channeling spiritual energy to lift the furnace lid. A pungent, charred scent wafted forth from the furnace. Upon inhaling this aroma, the alchemist shook his head in resignation, exclaiming, "Alas! Another failure." He then discarded the 10 failed potions into a nearby iron basin. Lu Feng glanced over and noticed that the basin already contained dozens of darkened potions, indicating that the alchemist had ruined several batches. At that moment, the alchemist turned to address them, asking, "Shopkeeper Wang, what brings you here so unexpectedly?" Shopkeeper Wang performed a respectful bow and replied, "Master Zhang, this young man is named Lu Feng. He is our newly recruited alchemy apprentice." Master Zhang scrutinized Lu Feng from head to toe, expressing his skepticism. "Oh, Shopkeeper Wang, this individual appears to possess no cultivation at all. Is he truly capable of fulfilling the duties of an alchemy apprentice?" Upon returning to Master Zhang, this individual had already undergone my scrutiny and possesses a modicum of experience in the realm of elixirs. After speaking, the proprietor Wang signaled to Lu Feng, who promptly stepped forward and clasped his hands in greeting, saying, "I am Lu Feng, here to pay my respects to Master Zhang." "Ah, Lu Feng is it? Since you have come, assist me in procuring the materials for a spirit-gathering pill. The herbal cabinet is over there." Master Zhang's sudden request was undoubtedly a test of Lu Feng's knowledge of alchemy. Lu Feng bowed respectfully and proceeded towards the herbal cabinet, beginning his search. In less than 10 breaths, he presented the required materials for the spirit-gathering pill before Master Zhang, asking, "Master Zhang, here are the materials you requested. Do they meet your approval?" With a cursory glance, Master Zhang nodded in affirmation, exclaiming, "Excellent. From this day forth, you shall be my alchemical apprentice. However, to assist me effectively, it is imperative that you possess some level of cultivation." With that, Master Zhang grasped Lu Feng's shoulder, and a surge of spiritual energy coursed through Lu Feng's body, assessing his condition. Sensing the scrutiny, Lu Feng remained still, allowing the examination to proceed. After a moment, Master Zhang released his grip and scrutinized Lu Feng, inquiring, "You are indeed Lu Feng, correct?" "Yes, Master Zhang." "Haha, splendid." Master Zhang laughed heartily, producing a pouch and handing it to Lu Feng. Inside this pouch are cultivation techniques and 3 spirit-gathering pills. Should you manage to grasp the fundamentals of this technique, I may consider accepting you as my personal disciple. Chapter 4. Reconstructing a mid-tier Earth-grade technique, the Qingmu Burning Spirit Art. Upon officially becoming an alchemical apprentice at the Dan Yuan Pavilion, the proprietor Wang promptly allocated a private room for Lu Feng. Unlike the shared quarters of the other shop assistants, which accommodated 4 individuals, Lu Feng enjoyed a solitary chamber. This arrangement stemmed from Wang's regard for Master Zhang's treatment of Lu Feng. The reason for Master Zhang's sudden favor towards Lu Feng was primarily due to his dual wood and fire spiritual roots. Such roots mark one as a natural candidate for an alchemist, and with minimal guidance, he could achieve considerable success in the field of alchemy. The fire root grants mastery over the alchemical flames, while the wood root fosters a unique affinity with various spiritual herbs and medicines. Together, these roots create a synergy that makes one a true alchemist. To squander such potential would be a travesty. Lu Feng was acutely aware of this. His early acceptance under Chun Hai was also attributed to these roots. Unfortunately, his alchemical talent was mediocre, often resulting in explosive failures. Consequently, among the disciples of the Yunxiao sect, he earned the moniker Exploding Furnace Ancestor. Though indifferent to the opinions of others, he ultimately found himself forsaken by the sect. Sitting in his chamber, Lu Feng let out a deep sigh, then gathered his thoughts. With a flicker of intent, he summoned the small, battered furnace from his system space. Previously, he had refrained from inspecting the furnace outside the gates of the Yunxiao sect, but now the time had come for a thorough exploration. Furthermore, he needed to decipher the workings of his system. Lu Feng gazed at the small, dilapidated furnace before him, stroking his chin as he observed it for a while. He discovered that the black surface was adorned with peculiar engravings. Some of these designs resembled flames, while others evoked clouds or the gentle caress of the wind. Although these patterns were not distinctly visible, they could be palpably sensed upon touch. Furthermore, the periphery of the humble furnace featured a triangular stand, with 2 fist-sized openings at the top, which remained sealed under normal circumstances. Lu Feng attempted to pry open the openings, but found that brute force was futile. Could it be that spiritual energy was required to unlock this furnace? During his time at the Yunxiao sect, He had perused various alchemical texts in the library, which mentioned that certain special furnaces could only be activated with spiritual energy. Moreover, such furnaces were of considerable grade. It seemed that the system's reward of this modest furnace was indeed a treasure. Resolute in his thoughts, Lu Feng decided to restore his cultivation. He cast a glance at the bag resting on the table, a gift from Master Zhang, which contained 3 qi-gathering pills and a low-grade yellow-tier cultivation manual. Naturally, he had no intention of practicing such a mediocre technique. Although the Yunxiao sect had stripped him of his cultivation, his memories and experiences remained intact. He had previously practiced the mid-grade earth-tier technique, the Qingmu burning spirit formula. Determined, Lu Feng waved his hand and stored the small furnace back into the system space. He then approached the bed, naturally settling into a cross-legged position, and gradually closed his eyes to begin drawing in spiritual energy. Following the method outlined in the Qingmu burning spirit formula, it took him a quarter of an hour to draw the first wisp of spiritual energy into his body. Upon noticing this, Lu Feng opened his eyes once more, expressing his frustration. This won't do. The spiritual energy in this room is far too thin. Even a week of such cultivation would hardly suffice to reach the first layer of the qi-gathering realm. With this thought, he rose and moved to the table, seizing the bag to extract the 3 qi-gathering pills. These pills were specifically designed for practitioners in the qi-gathering realm. However, the 3 he held were of low quality, riddled with impurities, and even containing a trace of pill toxicity. During his time at the Yunxiao sect, he had only used mid-grade qi-gathering pills, occasionally obtaining even high-grade ones. However, the circumstances had changed, and in order to swiftly restore his cultivation, he had no choice but to resort to these inferior pills. With this in mind, Lu Feng promptly swallowed one of the qi-gathering pills and returned to the bed to resume his practice. As the pills settled in his stomach, wisps of spiritual energy unfurled from the elixir, immediately circulating within Lu Feng's body according to the principles of the Qingmu burning spirit formula. After a quarter of an hour, a refined stream of spiritual energy flowed into his dantian. The dantian, once destroyed, began to recoalesce under the nurturing influence of this energy. To reach the first layer of the qi-gathering realm, he needed the dantian to fully reform. Thus, 2 hours swiftly passed, and the sky gradually succumbed to darkness under the fading rays of the sun. At this time of year, the shops within the Cloud Immortal Pavilion typically begin to close one after another. At this moment, a young attendant approached Lu Feng's door and knocked, inquiring, "Friend Lu, are you there?" Upon hearing this, Lu Feng's eyes suddenly opened wide, and he replied, "I am here. What is the matter?" "The innkeeper has asked me to escort you to the dining hall, as dinner will soon be served." Shortly thereafter, Lu Feng's voice resonated again. "All right, please wait a moment. I shall be there shortly." With that, Lu Feng suppressed the spiritual energy of the elixirs within him, tidied his garments, and stepped outside. Upon seeing Lu Feng emerge, the young attendant promptly smiled and bowed, saying, "Friend Lu, let us hurry along. Otherwise, we shall arrive to find only leftovers." Lu Feng returned the gesture respectfully and nodded. "Very well, I appreciate your guidance." In no time, the two arrived at the dining hall, where redwood tables were arranged, and several men and women were gathered around them. Lu Feng scanned the room and discerned that the patrons were all staff members of the establishment. Most of them possessed cultivation, albeit at the initial stage of qi refinement. The young attendant led Lu Feng to an unoccupied table and remarked, "Friend Lu, let us sit here." Indeed, with that, they took their seats, though the patrons in the hall regarded Lu Feng with curious glances. After all, he was a newcomer. Before long, 3 women entered the dining hall, carrying buckets of food. Observing this, the crowd immediately formed a queue to receive their meals. When Lu Feng collected his portion, he slightly furrowed his brow. The food consisted solely of what ordinary people would eat, lacking any ingredients made from spiritual rice or herbs. During his time in the Yunxiao sect, even the outer disciples were afforded spiritual rice. Here, however, the treatment was rather dismal. Furthermore, Lu Feng's meal comprised only a bowl of plain rice accompanied by a serving of greens and stir-fried beans, with no meat in sight. Well, one must bow their head under the roof of another. After all, this meal is complimentary, he thought. After finishing dinner, Lu Feng returned to his room to resume his cultivation. The night swiftly passed, and as the sun's rays graced the earth the following morning, Lu Feng's shattered dantian finally reformed. At that moment, his cultivation realm once again reached the first layer of qi refinement. Lu Feng gently opened his eyes and sighed with relief. At last, I have regained my cultivation. Chapter 5, The Enigmatic Little Furnace. This night of cultivation not only restored Lu Feng to the first layer of qi refinement, but also required the use of 2 inferior qi-gathering pills. Glancing at the solitary pill remaining in his hand, Lu Feng shook his head in resignation. He was still too impoverished and urgently needed to acquire more resources for cultivation. To exact vengeance upon the Yunxiao sect, he must elevate his cultivation level. Otherwise, not only would revenge be impossible, but even self-preservation would be a challenge. Subsequently, Lu Feng approached the table, focused his thoughts, and summoned the little furnace from the system's storage. Now, he possesses spiritual energy within him and decides to attempt to channel it into the small broken furnace, wondering if it might ignite. With a decisive gesture, Lu Feng pinches his fingers and directs them towards the top of the diminutive furnace, whereupon a stream of spiritual energy shoots forth from his fingertips, swiftly penetrating the furnace. In the next moment, a hole on the left side of the furnace's top gradually opens, and as Lu Feng peers inside, an intensely scorching heat emanates from the opening. Alarmed, he quickly retracts his head, beads of cold sweat forming on his brow. The temperature that surged from the opening is undoubtedly higher than that of any alchemical furnace he had previously utilized. Wait, something is amiss. Lu Feng gazes at the small furnace in perplexity, questioning, where does this flame originate? Typically, the flames within an alchemical furnace are sourced externally, such as from the flames catalyzed by an alchemist's spiritual power, or from the beast fire and exotic fire employed by lesser alchemists. In the grand sects, the flames of alchemical furnaces are derived from the earth's core. Yet, the small furnace before him has no external flame introduction, leaving him bewildered. He scrutinizes the small furnace further, tenderly caressing its surface. After a moment, he discovers that the temperature of the furnace's exterior is entirely normal, akin to that of ordinary metal, albeit with a hardness surpassing that of the larger alchemical furnaces within Yunxiao sect. Although Lu Feng remains puzzled about the source of the flame within the small furnace, there is a silver lining. He can now concoct elixirs without the need for external flames. By simply placing the spiritual herbs and grasses into the furnace, he can refine them directly. Additionally, upon inspection, he deduces that the hole on the right side of the furnace's top is likely the outlet for the elixirs. Having gained a general understanding of the small furnace's condition, Lu Feng waves his hand to store the furnace within the system's space. After a brief freshening up, he departs for the alchemical room. According to Lu Feng's plan, to trigger the system rewards, he first requires an alchemical furnace and the materials for alchemy. With the furnace secured, he now only needs the alchemical materials, which he intends to procure from Master Zhang. Soon, Lu Feng arrives at the alchemical room where Master Zhang was present the previous day, but to his dismay, the room is empty. In an effort to endear himself to Master Zhang, he begins to sweep and tidy the alchemical room. After half an hour, Master Zhang strolls into the room, and upon noticing Lu Feng diligently cleaning, he silently nods in approval. At that moment, Lu Feng turns to see Master Zhang and promptly bows, exclaiming, I am Lu Feng. Honored to meet Master Zhang. Today marks your first day assisting me, and I have 3 points of instruction to convey to you, Master Zhang states. Please enlighten me. Master Zhang. Lu Feng adopts a humble demeanor, appearing as an obedient apprentice. First, you are prohibited from moving any items in this room without my permission. Second, you must not disclose anything you observe here without my consent. Third, refrain from asking inappropriate questions or prying into matters that do not concern you. Do you understand? Yes, I understand. Lu Feng replies earnestly. Master Zhang, having concluded his words, made his way to the alchemical furnace and continued, Lu Feng, assist me in gathering the materials for 5 portions of qi gathering pills. Certainly, Master Zhang, Lu Feng replied promptly, hastening to the spiritual herb cabinet to search. In a short while, he had assembled the 5 required ingredients. However, among these, Lu Feng intentionally included a lower quality earth spirit grass. He was curious to see whether Master Zhang would notice this and how he would respond if he did. Upon receiving the 5 materials, Master Zhang did not immediately commence the alchemical process. Instead, he meticulously examined the components. After thorough scrutiny, he promptly extracted the inferior earth spirit grass. Lu Feng, he remarked, henceforth, refrain from using such quality of earth spirit grass. It should be treated as waste. Lu Feng quickly accepted the lower grade herb, replying, understood, I will remember. He then presented a superior specimen of earth spirit grass in its place, while discreetly pocketing the inferior one. Subsequently, Master Zhang began the alchemical process, with Lu Feng standing by, ready to assist. Thus, a day swiftly passed, during which Master Zhang successfully refined 3 batches of pills out of 5, while 2 were rendered useless. Lu Feng also salvaged several inferior spiritual herbs and medicines from the cabinet, among which was a portion of the qi gathering pill materials. As evening approached, Master Zhang stretched and addressed Lu Feng. Lu Feng, your performance today was commendable. Maintain this momentum. Lu Feng smiled, replying, thank you for your praise, Master. It is a privilege to assist you. Ah, you have quite the sweet tongue. Master Zhang chuckled. Well, that will be all for today. Do not forget to practice the techniques I have bestowed upon you. Yes, I shall remember. With that, Master Zhang departed from the alchemical room. Lu Feng, observing the dozen or so failed pills in the iron basin, prepared to dispose of them outside. Just then, a voice called out from a distance, "Lu Daoyu." Hold on. Turning around, Lu Feng recognized the voice as belonging to the attendant who had taken him out for a meal the previous day. Seeing him approach, Lu Feng paused his actions, looking at him with curiosity. "Is there something you need, young man?" The attendant hurried to Lu Feng's side, smiling. "Lu Daoyu, you may not be aware, but these failed pills can actually be sold." Lu Feng furrowed his brow slightly, intrigued. "Oh, failed pills can be sold? Indeed. Before you arrived, our shop staff took turns handling these failed pills. Now that you are here, they..." Realizing the implication, Lu Feng inquired. "If these failed pills can be sold, who would be the buyers, and what is the price?" The attendant, seeing Lu Feng's inquisitiveness, responded. "Though these failed pills have minimal efficacy and contain many impurities, there are still quite a number of cultivators who utilize such pills in their training." Upon hearing this, Lu Feng felt his worldview once again challenged. Originally, he believed that consuming inferior medicinal pills was already a daunting challenge. However, it now appeared that the plight of the wandering cultivators in this realm was truly lamentable. As for the pricing, every 25 discarded pills equated to a single viable medicinal pill. Chapter 6. Utilizing the system, transforming waste into treasure. Although this price was rather modest, the ability to sell discarded pills represented an additional source of income. At present, Lu Feng was an apprentice alchemist under Master Zhang, and thus all these wasted spiritual herbs and medicinal pills belonged to him. He was free to dispose of them as he wished. With this in mind, Lu Feng turned to the young attendant and cupped his hands in greeting, inquiring about his name. I am surnamed Chun, with a single character San." Lu Feng scrutinized him for a moment before responding. "Ah, it is fellow Taoist Chun. You must be here for these discarded pills, correct?" Chun San rubbed his hands together and nodded, saying, "Indeed, if fellow Taoist Lu is willing, I can offer you some spirit stones in exchange for these discarded pills. However, the price will be somewhat lower than the market value, just enough for me to earn a bit for my trouble." The directness of his intentions took Lu Feng by surprise. "Oh, and what price would you offer?" After a moment of contemplation, Chun San extended 3 fingers and proposed, "How about 30 discarded pills for 2 inferior spirit stones?" This price was 5 discarded pills more than what he could obtain elsewhere, implying that Chun San would profit by 5 discarded pills each time he collected 30 from Lu Feng. Seeing this, Lu Feng nodded. "That sounds agreeable. However, you need not come every day. Once every 3 days will suffice." "Very well, as long as fellow Taoist Lu is agreeable, I shall come to collect whenever you wish." With that, Lu Feng handed over the 15 discarded pills in the iron basin. "Here are 15 discarded pills. According to your price, that amounts to 1 inferior spirit stone." Chun San promptly produced an inferior spirit stone and handed it to Lu Feng, smiling as he said, "Here is the spirit stone. Please accept it, fellow Taoist Lu. If there is nothing else, I shall return in 3 days. That is acceptable." Watching Chun San depart, Lu Feng stood in contemplation. It seemed he still lacked sufficient understanding of the cultivation world. The intricacies of this realm of wandering cultivators were particularly hard to grasp. After pondering for a moment, Lu Feng tidied up the alchemy room, then went to the dining hall for dinner before returning to his quarters. Upon entering his room, he retrieved some discarded spiritual herbs from his cloth bag. After a thorough sorting, Lu Feng selected the materials for a chi-gathering pill, and with a thought, the small broken furnace materialized before him. Success or failure hinged on this moment. As he spoke, Lu Feng infused a thread of spiritual energy into the small broken furnace, causing the left aperture to slowly open. Without hesitation, he poured the materials for the chi-gathering pill into it. Subsequently, the aperture closed, and Lu Feng initiated the alchemical incantation to guide the small broken furnace in melting the spiritual herbs step by step. During the melting process, Lu Feng discovered that although the internal flames of the small broken furnace were terrifyingly intense, he could maintain excellent control over them. The precision of this flame control surpassed even that which he had experienced at the Yunxiao sect. Indeed, it is a treasure produced by the system, truly remarkable. Lu Feng mused within himself. Under his deft manipulation, the spiritual herbs he had invested were swiftly refined into essence. Subsequently, Lu Feng began to wield his spiritual power to merge and compress this essence. This stage is the most crucial step in the art of alchemy. Should the fusion fail, it could result in a waste pill or even an explosion of the furnace. As Lu Feng immersed himself in the fusion process, he suddenly realized that he had strayed from his intended path. This deviation was not in regard to his alchemical techniques, but rather his goal. Wait a moment. I seem to have been preparing for an explosion. Why am I veering towards concocting a finished elixir? While the difficulty of refining a finished elixir is considerable, the challenge of inducing an explosion is far more manageable. With 8 years of alchemical experience under his belt, Lu Feng was quite familiar with the art of causing an explosion. Then let it explode. With that, Lu Feng intentionally manipulated his spiritual power to excessively compress the essence of the spiritual herbs, soon leading to a chaotic state within the essence. Yes, precisely. It's about to explode. No sooner had he thought this than the small furnace emitted a dull thud, followed by a whiff of charred aroma wafting from within. Though the scent was faint, Lu Feng, as an alchemist, immediately recognized that an explosion had occurred. Haha, I have finally succeeded in causing an explosion. With that exclamation, Lu Feng directed a trace of spiritual power into the furnace, causing the opening on the right side of the furnace's top to unveil. To his astonishment, 10 dark elixirs shot forth. Lu Feng swiftly advanced and gathered these elixirs into a cloth pouch. Shortly thereafter, a mechanical voice resonated in his mind. Ding! You have caused an explosion while refining Qi Gathering Pill, triggering a 10-fold reward. Please select your reward. Reward 1, 100 inferior Qi Gathering Pills. Reward 2, 30 superior Qi Gathering Pills. Reward 3, 15 exquisite Qi Gathering Pills. The sudden system prompt left Lu Feng momentarily stunned. After a considerable pause, he finally reacted, his expression brimming with excitement. After a moment of exhilaration, he began to deliberate which reward to choose. Given the 3 options presented by the system, any rational individual would undoubtedly opt for reward 3. Exquisite elixirs surpass inferior ones both in value and efficacy. Moreover, exquisite elixirs possess a unique property, being devoid of impurities and pill toxins. Even during his time in the Yunxiao sect, Lu Feng had never partaken of such high-grade elixirs. However, his circumstances had changed. Presently, he was devoid of resources, struggling to survive in this world. While choosing exquisite Qi Gathering Pills would indeed facilitate a rapid enhancement of his cultivation, what would he do once he had consumed all 15? Today, he had thoroughly rummaged through the spiritual herb cabinet in the alchemical chamber, only to discover a meager supply of inferior materials for Qi Gathering Pills. If he depleted the exquisite elixirs without acquiring new materials, he would find himself bereft of any elixirs altogether. Some might argue that selling just one exquisite Qi Gathering Pill could yield enough spirit stones to procure materials. In the past, during his time at the Yunxiao sect, Lu Feng would have dared to act boldly, for he was under the protection of a master at the nascent soul stage. However, now he found himself merely a discarded waste, expelled from the sect, devoid of any influential background or strength. To venture out and sell high-grade elixirs would be tantamount to courting death. After a moment's contemplation, Lu Feng ultimately resolved to select Reward 1, which consisted of 100 low-grade spirit gathering pills. His intention for acquiring these pills was not for personal consumption, but rather to sell them. While selling high-grade elixirs might invite perilous consequences, the sale of low-grade spiritual medicines was far less likely to attract such dangers. After all, a single low-grade spirit gathering pill cost merely 2 low-grade spirit stones. It would hardly be worth the risk of taking a life for such a trivial sum. With his mind made up, Lu Feng declared, I choose Reward 1. Ding! Congratulations. You have received 100 low-grade spirit gathering pills. The pills have been placed in the system space. Please retrieve them at your convenience. With a thought, Lu Feng accessed the system space, where he beheld 100 low-grade spirit gathering pills neatly arranged. He promptly took one out to examine it, and after a brief moment, a smile spread across his face. I never anticipated my system possessed the ability to transform waste into treasure. This is a stroke of fortune. Chapter 7. Flattery without cause is either deceit or theft. To ascertain the efficacy of the elixirs awarded by the system, Lu Feng promptly swallowed one of the low-grade spirit gathering pills whole. As the pill settled in his abdomen, wisps of spiritual energy began to emanate forth. Observing this, Lu Feng immediately commenced the operation of his cultivation technique to guide the energy through his body in a cycle. After an hour, he finally completed the refinement of the pill. Phew! The effects of this elixir surpass even those of the low-grade spirit gathering pills provided by Master Zhang. It seems that the system truly produces only the finest quality. Having regained his cultivation to the first level of Qi refinement, the time required to refine the spirit gathering pill had significantly diminished. Now that the efficacy of the system's elixirs had been validated, he needed to devise a plan to sell these low-grade spirit gathering pills. By selling these pills, he could amass his first fortune to procure various spiritual herbs, subsequently continuing to refine and garner system rewards. However, to whom could he sell these low-grade spirit gathering pills? As an apprentice alchemist at the Danyuan Pavilion. Selling them, there would surely raise suspicions. Even selling them to the shop attendants, like Chun San, could provoke doubt. After some deliberation, Lu Feng resolved to wait until after work tomorrow to peddle his spirit-gathering pills outside. This seemed the wisest course of action. With his decision firmly set, Lu Feng prepared to continue consuming the spirit-gathering pills for cultivation, but upon noticing the small broken furnace on the table, he furrowed his brow. How is this little broken furnace completely intact? Just an hour prior, he had used this very furnace to refine pills, and aside from a dull thud, it showed no signs of damage. This was a scenario Lu Feng had never encountered during his time at the Yunxiao sect. Using a second-tier furnace for pill refinement could not guarantee its preservation. Consequently, Lu Feng began to carefully examine the small broken furnace with his hands. After a moment, his frown deepened, for his investigation revealed that the furnace bore no traces of damage whatsoever. Could it be that the explosion of the furnace earlier was insufficiently powerful? Generally, the potency of the furnace is directly correlated with the grade of the elixir and the alchemical techniques employed. The higher the grade of the elixir being refined, the stronger the explosion of the furnace. Similarly, if one deliberately compresses the spiritual herbs during the refinement process, it will also amplify the furnace's explosion. Typically, the greater the amount of compressed spiritual energy infused, the more potent the explosion will be. Gazing at the dilapidated furnace before him, Lu Feng pondered for quite some time, unable to comprehend why it remained unscathed. Oh well, it matters not. I shall observe the next explosion. With that, Lu Feng stored the small furnace in the system space and returned to his bed to commence his meditation and cultivation. The night passed in silence, and before long, dawn broke, casting a warm glow into the room. Lu Feng slowly opened his eyes. After a night of cultivation, he had thoroughly stabilized his dantian and stored approximately 1/5 of spiritual energy therein. At this pace, he would likely break through to the second layer of the qi refinement stage in about a week. This speed was not particularly swift, primarily due to the poor cultivation environment and resources. Were he within the Yunxiao sect, he would require only 3 days to return to the second layer of the qi refinement stage. It is time to get to work. With that thought, Lu Feng promptly made his way to the alchemy room to clean, just as he had done the previous day. However, today, Master Zhang arrived a bit later, only making his entrance towards the end of the hour. Upon seeing him, Lu Feng stepped forward with a respectful gesture, introducing himself. I am Lu Feng, honored Master Zhang. Master Zhang nodded lightly and said, Lu Feng, please fetch me the materials for 5 spirit-gathering pills. I hope to successfully refine a batch today. Certainly, Master Zhang. Lu Feng quickly handed over the materials for the 5 pills. After inspecting the ingredients and finding no issues, Master Zhang began the alchemical process. As the half-day passed swiftly, Master Zhang had unfortunately wasted 2 batches of pills during his refining efforts. Given his success rate, which is not insignificant, achieving a stable success rate of 3 out of 5 indicates that Master Zhang's alchemical skills are quite advanced, surpassing those of Lu Feng during his time at the Yunxiao sect. Moreover, Master Zhang rarely experienced furnace explosions, further demonstrating his proficiency in the craft. By the time the clock struck the hour of the rooster, Master Zhang let out a slight sigh, lamenting, alas, 2 batches have been wasted. What a pity. Lu Feng, standing by, dared not speak much, acknowledging that Master Zhang's alchemical prowess was quite respectable. Subsequently, Master Zhang glanced at Lu Feng and instructed, Lu Feng, I shall be departing the market for a while tomorrow. You must ensure the alchemy room is secure. Do not allow anyone else to enter. Do you understand? Yes, I understand, Lu Feng replied. By the way, how many of the 3 spirit-gathering pills I gave you remain? Upon being asked, Lu Feng did not conceal the truth. He retrieved 1 pill from his pouch and responded, in answer to Master Zhang, I have consumed 2 of the pills. Oh, how effective were they? Lu Feng feigned contemplation before replying. I have sensed the spiritual energy circulating within my body. However, I am still unable to coalesce this energy within my dantian. The situation he described resembled that of ordinary mortals who have just begun to explore the realm of cultivation. Naturally, Lu Feng had experienced this process himself, which enabled him to respond with ease. Master Zhang nodded slightly and remarked, indeed, continue your cultivation according to the method. When you manage to condense spiritual energy in your dantian, I shall take you as my direct disciple. Lu Feng immediately feigned an expression of excitement, pretending to express gratitude. Yes, I will certainly strive to cultivate diligently, aiming to become Master's direct disciple at the earliest opportunity. After saying this, Master Zhang rose and departed, leaving Lu Feng standing there, his expression gradually returning to normal. From the moment Master Zhang bestowed upon him the cultivation technique and the qi-gathering pills, Lu Feng had been wary of him. They had no familial ties. Why would he offer Lu Feng such an opportunity for cultivation? There must be some ulterior motive. As the saying goes, no one offers favors without an agenda. Furthermore, after the events at the Yunxiao sect, Lu Feng's vigilance towards outsiders had intensified. However, due to his current low cultivation level, he could not discern Master Zhang's true capabilities, thus he must continue to play along. Nevertheless, this Yunxian workshop was certainly not a place for prolonged stay, as it was part of the Yunxiao sect's territory. Realizing this, Lu Feng swiftly tidied up the alchemy room, stuffing several discarded pills into a cloth bag before closing the door and heading to the dining hall. During dinner, a young attendant named Chun San approached Lu Feng with an excited expression. "Lu Daoist, I have just received some significant news. Would you like to hear it?" Lu Feng paused his meal, a look of curiosity crossing his face. "Oh, what is this important news?" "Hee. Earlier today, I overheard a few guests discussing something big. Several inner disciples of the Yunxiao sect will be descending the mountain for training and are rumored to pass through our Yunxian workshop." Upon hearing Chun San's words, a glimmer of interest flashed in Lu Feng's eyes, and he inquired curiously, "Inner disciples of the Yunxiao sect? What does that have to do with us?" Chun San raised an eyebrow at Lu Feng and explained, "Lu Daoist, you may not be aware, but the Yunxiao sect is a top-tier cultivation sect in our southern region. To be noticed by an inner disciple of this sect, even as a servant, would be an immense stroke of luck." Lu Feng was already well aware of this. Having held a status higher than that of the inner disciples previously, how could he not understand? "I see. Do you happen to know when these inner disciples will arrive and who they are?" Seeing Lu Feng's continued inquiries, Chun San helplessly shook his head. "Alas, Lu Daoist, you overestimate me. With my standing, I have no knowledge of such matters, but I have heard they should be arriving within the next few days." "Indeed. Let's focus on our meal." After finishing his dinner, Lu Feng left the Dan Yuan pavilion and began to stroll leisurely through the market. At this time, several shops in the market were gradually closing, and as Lu Feng wandered, he observed the happenings around him. His purpose for venturing out was to sell the low-grade qi-gathering pills he had received as a reward from the system, but he was uncertain about how to go about selling them. Just then, he noticed a few scattered cultivators heading towards the western part of the market. Upon witnessing the scene, Lu Feng followed the scattered practitioners into a narrow alley. Before long, he found himself amidst a series of stalls lining both sides of the passage. The vendors were energetically calling out to potential customers, reminiscent of a bustling marketplace in the mortal realm. However, the wares they offered were tailored for cultivators. Could this be the night market of the cultivation world? Lu Feng pondered in astonishment. Yet, almost immediately, a gentle smile graced his lips. How fortuitous, he thought. I have qi-gathering pills to sell. This would be the perfect venue. Nevertheless, before setting up his stall, Lu Feng wished to explore the night market, seeking any treasures and gauging the price levels. Resolute in his decision, he began to wander through the alley. After a thorough exploration, he discovered a diverse array of goods for sale, skills, magical artifacts, elixirs, talismans, and more. However, most items were of low grade, with only a few mid-grade treasures available, albeit at exorbitant prices. Moreover, the prices here were 2 to 3 times cheaper than those in the shops of the main market. For instance, the low-grade qi-gathering pill he possessed was also available here for merely 1.5 low-grade spirit stones. At this rate, his 96 low-grade qi-gathering pills could fetch him 144 low-grade spirit stones, having consumed 4 during his cultivation the previous night. Having grasped the pricing structure, Lu Feng sought an unoccupied stall to set up shop. Just as he placed several qi-gathering pills upon the counter, 2 middle-aged men suddenly approached him. "Hey there, kid. Who allowed you to set up shop here?" Lu Feng looked up and discerned that these 2 were also early-stage qi refinement cultivators. Yet their intimidating demeanor suggested they were more akin to thugs. Clearly stronger than him, Lu Feng opted to avoid any unnecessary conflict and cupped his hands in respect. "Gentlemen, this is my first time setting up a stall here, and I am unfamiliar with the local rules. I beg your pardon." Upon hearing this, the man on the left sneered coldly and retorted, "Since it's your first time, let me enlighten you on the rules here. If you wish to sell, you must pay a management fee." Lu Feng felt somewhat speechless within, so these men were mere extortionists. He had not anticipated encountering such trouble in the cultivation realm. With a forced smile, he inquired, "Might I ask what the management fee amounts to?" The menacing figure immediately raised 2 fingers and declared, 2 low-grade spirit stones for a night. The price was not exorbitant, yet with over 100 stalls in the alley, these 2 could amass hundreds of low-grade spirit stones in management fees daily. It appeared that this night market was quite profitable. Lu Feng rummaged through his cloth pouch, only to find a solitary low-grade spirit stone, the result of a previous transaction with Chun San over a discarded pill. Clearing his throat, he addressed the 2 men, "Gentlemen, my stall has yet to open, and I lack sufficient spirit stones. Would it be possible to offer 1 low-grade qi-gathering pill in lieu of the management fee?" Young man, a single low-grade qi-gathering pill is insufficient. If you truly wish to set up a stall here, you must at least produce 2. Although Lu Feng felt a twinge of displeasure, he nonetheless retrieved 2 low-grade qi-gathering pills and handed them over. Fine. Two it is. The menacing figure snatched the pills with a cold smirk, remarking, Heh, this lad is quite perceptive. Very well, you may set up your stall here. But remember to leave before dawn. Otherwise, do not blame us for any mishaps. Yes, thank you for the reminder, brothers. With that, the two departed, allowing Lu Feng to finally commence his sale of the qi-gathering pills. He arranged several low-grade qi-gathering pills on his stall, but he noticed that numerous vendors in this alley were selling similar wares. To swiftly sell out, he needed to devise a strategy. As he was not accustomed to the stall business, perhaps a price reduction is the only way. Lu Feng contemplated. He then raised his voice, announcing, clearance sale. High-quality low-grade qi-gathering pills for only 1 low-grade spirit stone each. Don't miss out as you pass by. Upon hearing this, the crowd immediately turned their attention to Lu Feng. Even the vendors nearby cast curious glances in his direction. The patrons in this area were primarily low-tier cultivators, who regularly required medicinal pills for their training. The low-grade qi-gathering pill was an essential item, and Lu Feng's decision to price them at just 1 spirit stone was unprecedented in this alley. Soon, a young female cultivator with braided hair approached and inquired, Sir, are your low-grade qi-gathering pills truly priced at 1 low-grade spirit stone? Lu Feng smiled and affirmed, indeed, just 1 low-grade spirit stone each. As he spoke, the onlookers scrutinized the pills on his stall, wary of the possibility of counterfeit products. After a moment's contemplation, the young female cultivator continued, May I see one of your low-grade qi-gathering pills? Of course. Lu Feng responded without hesitation, handing her a pill. The young woman examined it closely, her eyes lighting up with delight. Sir, I would like 20 low-grade qi-gathering pills. Hearing her request, Lu Feng's heart soared. Certainly. That will be a total of 20 low-grade spirit stones. They swiftly exchanged the pills for the payment. Once the young woman completed her purchase, the nearby cultivators eagerly turned to her, asking, Friend, can you confirm if this seller's low-grade qi-gathering pills are genuine? The young female cultivator merely nodded before hastily departing the alley. Witnessing this, the crowd's skepticism diminished significantly, and Lu Feng's remaining stock of low-grade qi-gathering pills quickly sold out. At that moment, Lu Feng's pouch contained 94 low-grade spirit stones, ample funds for purchasing materials for more qi-gathering pills. The thought of continuing to refine and reap system rewards filled him with exhilaration. Just as he was preparing to pack up and leave, the vendor next to him, who sold cultivation techniques, suddenly spoke up. Esteemed friend, may I have a word? Chapter 9. The Purchase of the Concealment Technique. Lu Feng turned his gaze to find a middle-aged man wearing a wide-brimmed hat, a smile gracing his face as he looked at him. Upon noticing this, Lu Feng halted his actions and clasped his hands, saying, Esteemed friend, I greet you. May I inquire as to the reason for your sudden call upon me? The man in the hat chuckled lightly. I had intended to purchase your qi-gathering pills. But alas, the crowd was too great for me to seize the opportunity. Thus, Lu Feng immediately comprehended the man's intentions. He wished to procure pills from him. Regrettably, the inferior qi-gathering pills he possessed had already been sold out. With a hint of reluctance, he replied, My friend, I apologize, but I have completely run out of inferior qi-gathering pills. You will have to wait until next time. Seemingly anticipating Lu Feng's response, the man continued, In that case, I shall await the next opportunity. I perceive that you have recently embarked upon the first layer of the qi refinement stage. Would you be interested in examining the cultivation techniques and spells I possess? Lu Feng raised an eyebrow, inquiring, Oh, I would appreciate your introduction, as I am indeed in search of a commendable spell. In truth, having spent a decade at the Azure Sect, his cultivation techniques and spells were of the highest caliber. He held a certain disdain for the inferior techniques commonly found in the markets for cultivators, yet considering the man's offer, he felt it prudent to take a look. The man promptly produced 3 spellbooks and placed them before Lu Feng, stating, Esteemed friend, please take a look at these 3 spells. Lu Feng glanced up to see that the 3 spells were Fireball Technique, Earth Escape Technique, and Spirit Rain Technique, corresponding to the elemental roots of fire, earth, and water. Unfortunately, all 3 were of the lower yellow grade, and Lu Feng deemed them unworthy of his attention. He shook his head and said, I already possess these 3 spells. Might you have something of a higher grade? Upon hearing Lu Feng's inquiry, the man in the hat smiled subtly and retrieved a worn book from his robes. Esteemed friend, this tome contains a mid-grade yellow spell known as the Concealment Technique. Would you be interested? At the mention of the spell's name, Lu Feng felt a flicker of interest. The Concealment Technique allowed one to partially mask their cultivation level, making it difficult for others to discern their true prowess. This spell did exist within the Azure Sect, though Lu Feng had previously dismissed it. However, at this moment, he found himself in need of such a technique. After a brief contemplation, Lu Feng asked, May I inquire as to the price of this spell? The man extended 5 fingers, stating, "Originally, this spell is priced at 60 inferior spirit stones. But given our fateful encounter, I shall sell it to you for 50 inferior spirit stones." Lu Feng frowned slightly. Typically, lower yellow-grade spells sold for only 10 to 15 inferior spirit stones, while mid-grade yellow spells generally commanded a price of 30 to 40 inferior spirit stones. The man's asking price of 50 inferior spirit stones was quite presumptuous. Clearing his throat, Lu Feng countered, "I can offer no more than 30 inferior spirit stones for this spell." Upon hearing Lu Feng's proposed price, the man in the hat was momentarily taken aback. Astonished by such a drastic reduction, who could possibly accept such a cut? "Friend, is your price not a tad too low? How about I offer an additional 5 low-grade spirit stones? What do you think?" Lu Feng shook his head, adopting a serious demeanor, declaring that 30 stones were non-negotiable. If the other party was unwilling, then so be it. After stating this, Lu Feng feigned an intention to depart. Observing this, the man in the straw hat promptly acquiesced. "Fine. 30 stones it is. Let this be a fortuitous connection between us." Subsequently, the two exchanged money for goods, and upon acquiring the chi gathering technique, Lu Feng immediately inspected it, confirming the spell was intact. He then tidied his stall and exited the alley. Once he departed, 3 unfamiliar cultivators discreetly trailed behind him. Lu Feng was naturally aware of their presence. However, it appeared they did not intend to confront him, but rather to investigate his circumstances. Noticing this, Lu Feng leisurely entered through the back door of the Dan Yuan Pavilion, causing his pursuers to halt and vanish into the night of Yunxian Fong. Upon returning to the Dan Yuan Pavilion, Lu Feng made his way to the front hall. Although the pavilion had closed for the evening, Manager Wang and several staff members were likely still tallying accounts in the front area. Lu Feng approached, cupping his hands in greeting. "I am Lu Fan, esteemed Manager Wang." Manager Wang turned to him with a smile. "Ah, it is Lu Fan. What brings you here?" "Manager Wang, I wish to purchase materials for refining chi gathering pills. Are they still available?" Upon hearing this, Manager Wang scrutinized Lu Feng once more before responding. "Indeed, they are available. But I wonder why you are suddenly interested in acquiring chi gathering materials?" Lu Feng cleared his throat and offered an explanation. "I have seen Master Zhang diligently refining pills these past few days, and I wish to try my hand at it as well." Manager Wang smiled lightly, an expression of understanding crossing his face. "I see. Since you wish to give it a go, I shall certainly accommodate you, but I must caution you. Pill refining carries a significant risk of failure, so do not act impulsively." Lu Feng nodded appreciatively. "Thank you for the reminder, Manager. I understand." Seeing Lu Feng's resolve, Manager Wang relented. "Very well. A set of materials for chi gathering pills is 10 low-grade spirit stones, but since you are an employee here, I shall charge you 9. Upon hearing this, Lu Feng promptly produced 9 low-grade spirit stones and offered them. "Here are the stones. I appreciate your assistance, Manager." Manager Wang merely glanced at them and waved his hand, causing the spirit stones to vanish from Lu Feng's grasp, replaced by a set of materials for chi gathering pills. "Here are your materials. However, I still advise against your endeavor," Manager Wang stated. Lu Feng accepted the materials, stowing them in his bag, and offered a respectful bow before turning to leave. Shortly thereafter, Lu Feng entered his room and retrieved the materials along with a small, worn-out furnace. It is time to continue with the furnace explosion." Lu Feng rubbed his hands together, clearly eager to begin. Chapter 10. The terrifying efficacy of the supreme chi gathering pill. As night enveloped the earth, the entire Yunxian Fang gradually succumbed to the embrace of twilight. Within his chamber, Lu Feng was diligently preparing for his alchemical endeavor. He cast one spiritual herb after another into the humble furnace, channeling a wisp of spiritual energy to manipulate the flames within, hastening their confluence. After half an hour, the materials for the gathering spirit pill had transformed into pure essence. The subsequent step was the crucial phase of pill formation, fraught with potential peril. At this moment, Lu Feng deftly controlled the temperature of the flames, while simultaneously directing another wisp of spiritual energy into the furnace. This energy swiftly enveloped the essence, beginning to compress it fervently. However, due to Lu Feng's relatively low cultivation level, his available spiritual energy was quite limited. Had he attained the pinnacle of chi refinement, he could have effortlessly detonated the entire batch of pills in an instant. "Faster, just a little more," he urged, as if in response to his plea. The modest furnace emitted a muffled bang. "Haha, success!" Lu Feng exclaimed, his excitement palpable as he leaned closer to the furnace. After a meticulous examination, he discerned that the furnace remained unscathed. It seemed this humble apparatus was anything but ordinary. It likely possessed some unique capabilities. Yet, this was not the time for contemplation. He needed to unveil the lid to trigger the system reward. With that, he directed another surge of spiritual energy towards the furnace, and the right aperture gradually opened. Suddenly, 10 dark pills, exuding a burnt aroma, flew forth from the opening. Lu Feng swiftly caught them, placing the 10 flawed pills into a cloth bag. In the next moment, a system notification echoed within his mind. Ding! You detonated the furnace while refining the gathering spirit pill, triggering a 10-fold reward. Please select your reward. Reward 1. Acquire 100 low-grade gathering spirit pills. Reward 2. Acquire 30 mid-grade gathering spirit pills. Reward 3. Acquire 15 superior gathering spirit pills, without a moment's hesitation. Lu Feng declared, I choose reward 3. Ding! Congratulations. You have received 15 superior gathering spirit pills. The pills have been deposited into the system space. Please retrieve them at your convenience. With a thought, Lu Feng entered the system space, where he beheld 15 resplendent gathering spirit pills lying in wait. Elated, he retrieved one of the superior pills for inspection. Goodness! So this is the legendary superior elixir. Observing the pill in his hand, he noted the stark contrast between the superior gathering spirit pill and the low-grade counterparts. Firstly, the external appearance was markedly different. The low-grade pills bore only a faint pattern. Their luster dull, with a subtle fragrance. In contrast, the superior gathering spirit pill displayed 5 distinct patterns, its surface shimmering with a silvery glow, emanating an irresistible aroma. Lu Feng swallowed hard, then gradually settled onto his bed, and with a decisive motion, he consumed the superior gathering spirit pill. As soon as the pill entered his abdomen, an abundance of spiritual energy began to radiate forth. Lu Feng swiftly activated the Qingmu burning spirit technique, guiding the spiritual energy to circulate within his body. During the process of refining the medicinal pill, he could distinctly perceive the unparalleled purity of this exquisite gathering qi pill, devoid of even the slightest impurity. Thus, after a full 3 hours of meticulous refinement, Lu Feng completely assimilated the pill. At this moment, the spiritual power in his dantian had already coalesced to a significant degree. With just one more exquisite gathering qi pill, he could directly ascend to the second layer of the qi refining stage. Goodness! The efficacy of this exquisite pill is truly astonishing. Lu Feng's face radiated excitement and astonishment. In fact, during his time at the Azure Sect, he had also consumed superior gathering qi pills, yet the effects of the superior variants paled in comparison to this exquisite one. According to Lu Feng's calculations, the potency of a single exquisite gathering qi pill could easily rival that of 2 superior pills, not accounting for the time cost of refining them. After experiencing the effects of the exquisite pill, Lu Feng suddenly felt a surge of confidence in his cultivation. If he had access to such an exquisite pill during his time at the Azure Sect, he would have long since broken through to the foundation establishment stage. Alas, this world offers no what-ifs. Subsequently, he took out a second exquisite gathering qi pill and swallowed it whole to begin the refining process anew. As the sun rose and set, the next day's sunlight once again bathed the earth. Lu Feng's cultivation had successfully advanced to the second layer of the qi refining stage. He exhaled a breath of turbid air and slowly opened his eyes. Today, he need not attend to work. Instead, he could venture out to procure additional alchemical materials in preparation for potential furnace explosions. The reason he refrained from purchasing materials at the Danyuan Pavilion was his fear of arousing suspicion from Manager Wang. After all, in Manager Wang's eyes, he was merely an unskilled alchemical apprentice. If he suddenly acquired a large quantity of alchemical materials, it would undoubtedly raise eyebrows. First, regarding the origin of his spirit stones, and second, why an ordinary person would require such an abundance of alchemical supplies. With this thought in mind, Lu Feng retrieved the book on the qi gathering technique that he had purchased. It seemed imperative to cultivate this spell. Having concluded this, Lu Feng swiftly tidied his room, washed up briefly, and then proceeded to the dining hall for breakfast. Although the meal consisted merely of thin porridge and pickled vegetables, he maintained a facade of an ordinary person to avoid drawing attention from the staff. After finishing his breakfast, Lu Feng returned to his room and began to focus intently on cultivating the qi gathering technique. This mid-tier yellow-grade spell was not particularly difficult to master, especially for a dual spirit root cultivator like Lu Feng, who found it remarkably effortless. After 2 hours of diligent practice, he finally achieved a foundational understanding of the qi gathering technique. Let me test whether the effects of the qi gathering technique are as described in the book, Lu Feng said, forming a hand seal to activate the technique. Instantly, the spiritual energy in his meridians swiftly converged into his dantian, causing it to gradually close as if entering a state of sealed slumber. Once the qi gathering technique was fully manifested, Lu Feng exuded an aura indistinguishable from that of an ordinary mortal. However, the introductory technique of concealing one's aura can only deceive practitioners of the same level. When faced with a practitioner of a higher realm, it can be easily discerned. Nevertheless, this is sufficient for Lu Feng. as it is unlikely that there are many foundation-building experts within the Yunxian workshop. After assessing his physical condition, Lu Feng wore a satisfied expression. Indeed. It was time to venture out and procure some alchemical materials. Chapter 11. Supreme Body Refining Pill. At noon, the various shops in Yunxian workshop were bustling with activity. Predominantly filled with cultivators, alongside a smattering of ordinary individuals, Lu Feng included. Under the influence of the aura concealing technique, Lu Feng now appeared indistinguishable from an ordinary person. Devoid of any discernible fluctuations of spiritual energy, even his dantian was sealed at this moment. At this juncture, Lu Feng arrived at a store named Xianan Tower. Upon entering the establishment, a young attendant greeted him with a smile. Welcome to Xianan Tower, esteemed senior. We offer the most comprehensive selection of alchemical products in the entire Yunxian workshop. May I inquire what you wish to purchase? Lu Feng glanced at the attendant, noting that he possessed only the cultivation level of the second layer of qi refining. Do you sell spiritual herbs and elixirs? He inquired. Indeed, we do. The attendant promptly replied. What specific spiritual herbs or elixirs are you seeking, esteemed senior? After a moment's contemplation, Lu Feng responded. Might you have the materials for the gathering qi pill and the body refining pill? Though Lu Feng primarily focused on restoring his cultivation level, with the aid of the system, he had resolved to refine his physical form as well. After all, a robust body can accommodate greater quantities of spiritual energy. Previously, during his time at the Yunxiao sect, he had devoted himself entirely to his cultivation and alchemy. It was only upon reaching the pinnacle of qi refining that he realized his physical form had significant shortcomings, which hindered his breakthrough into the foundation establishment stage. Upon hearing Lu Feng's inquiry, the attendant replied, Esteemed senior, we have all the materials you seek in our store. The materials for the gathering qi pill are priced at 10 low-grade spirit stones per portion, while those for the body refining pill are priced at 15 low-grade spirit stones per portion. Lu Feng nodded. The prices were identical to those at the Danyuan Pavilion, and he currently possessed only 54 low-grade spirit stones, thus limiting his purchasing power. I shall take 2 portions of the gathering qi pill materials and 2 portions of the body refining pill materials. Certainly. The total for your selected materials amounts to 50 low-grade spirit stones. How would you like to proceed with the payment? The attendant inquired. Lu Feng nodded, producing the spirit stones and handing them over. Here are the spirit stones, please confirm. Once both parties verified the transaction, their business was concluded. Lu Feng returned directly to the Danyuan Pavilion with the 4 portions of materials, this time without any strangers tailing him. It seemed that the daytime in Yunxian workshop was relatively safe. Upon returning to his room, Lu Feng retrieved his small furnace from the system space. It had been some time since he last refined the body refining pill. He wondered what grade of elixir the system would reward him with this time if he experienced a furnace explosion. With that thought, he cast 1 portion of the body refining pill materials into the small furnace. After a period of melting, the materials transformed entirely into a viscous essence. Subsequently, Lu Feng directed a surge of spiritual energy into the small broken furnace, fervently pressing the juices within. After a sustained period of exertion, the furnace emitted a dull thud. Observing this, Lu Feng's heart leapt with joy, and he immediately infused another wave of spiritual energy into the furnace. With a crack, the hole on the right side of the furnace opened, and 10 dark pills, exuding a burnt aroma, flew out. Lu Feng deftly caught the failed pills as a mechanical voice echoed in his mind. Ding! You have experienced an explosion while refining body refining pill, triggering a 10-fold return reward. Please select your reward. Reward 1. Gain 100 low-grade body refining pills. Reward 2. Gain 30 high-grade body refining pills. Reward 3. Gain 15 supreme body refining pills. As the system's prompts resonated, a radiant smile spread across Lu Feng's face, and he declared, Haha, I choose reward 3. Ding. Congratulations, you have obtained 15 supreme body refining pills. The pills have been placed into the system space. Please retrieve them at your convenience. Upon receiving the rewards, Lu Feng, with a mere thought, extracted a supreme body refining pill from the system space for inspection. The pill was perfectly round and glossy, adorned with 4 distinct pill patterns, and it awakened a long-dormant appetite within him. Typically, cultivators possess a subdued appetite, yet this supreme body refining pill incited an intense craving. As if consuming it would bestow tremendous benefits upon his body. Lu Feng had previously ingested ordinary low-grade body refining pills, but their effects had been rather mediocre. Gazing at the supreme body refining pill in his hand, he licked his lips and mused, This pill appears quite delectable. I shall taste its flavor. With that, he swallowed the pill whole. As the pill entered his abdomen, an exceedingly pure energy began to emanate from it. Lu Feng closed his eyes to savor the experience. realizing that the energy within the supreme body refining pill was continuously enhancing the strength of his physique and improving his various physiological functions. During this process of augmentation, viscous drops of dark red liquid began to seep from his skin. Although these drops were few in number, they emitted a foul stench. After 2 hours of refinement, Lu Feng finally consumed the entirety of the supreme body refining pill. Phew! I did not anticipate the effects of the supreme body refining pill to be so formidable, expelling the impurities that lay concealed deep within me. He was no stranger to the dark red liquid seeping from his body. He had encountered such a phenomenon a decade ago when he first entered the qi refining stage. However, that time, the expelled liquid had been more abundant. Nevertheless, the primary efficacy of the supreme body refining pill remained the enhancement of one's physical foundation, which was of utmost importance. After experiencing the effects of the supreme body refining pill, Lu Feng promptly stowed away the small broken furnace and exited the room, heading directly to the bathroom. He had no choice. The foul odor emanating from his body was overwhelming, and he needed to cleanse himself before continuing his cultivation. After a thorough washing, the unpleasant odor finally dissipated from Lu Feng's body. After finishing his bath, Lu Feng returned to his room and retrieved the small furnace once more, for he intended to exhaust the remaining 3 materials. However, prior to the alchemical process, he needed to contemplate the rewards he would select after the furnace's operation. His supply of spirit stones was dwindling, necessitating the acquisition of some inferior-grade elixirs to exchange for spirit stones. He opted for the inferior qi gathering pill, as it was a commodity that sold readily. As for the other 2 materials, he decided to craft superior-grade elixirs for his own use. Resolute in his decision, Lu Feng commenced his alchemical endeavor. 2 hours later, all 4 materials had successfully undergone the refining process. At this moment, he possessed a total of 28 superior qi gathering pills, 29 superior body refinement pills, and 100 inferior qi gathering pills prepared for sale. Gazing at the array of elixirs within his system's inventory, a look of satisfaction adorned his face. Once he consumed all these pills, he would likely restore his cultivation to the 3rd or 4th layer of the qi refinement stage. With that thought, Lu Feng took a superior qi gathering pill and swallowed it whole, then began to focus intently on his cultivation. Chapter 12. Breaking through to the 3rd layer of qi refinement. Throughout that day, Lu Feng devoted himself solely to refining elixirs and cultivating. With the assistance of the superior qi gathering pills, the spiritual energy within his dantian increased steadily. However, the energy required to ascend from the 2nd to the 3rd layer of the qi refinement stage was tenfold that of before. This meant he would need to consume approximately 20 superior qi gathering pills to achieve a successful breakthrough. Presently, the time needed to refine a single superior qi gathering pill was 1 hour. Thus, Lu Feng resolved to elevate his cultivation to the 3rd layer of qi refinement within the next 2 days before parting with the inferior qi gathering pills in his possession. Although a cultivator at the 3rd layer of qi refinement was not formidable, it would afford Lu Feng a degree of self-protection. With a decade of training at the Yunxiao sect, he believed he could contend even against cultivators at the 4th or 5th layers. Contemplating this, Lu Feng resumed his cultivation. The 2 days swiftly passed, during which Lu Feng only ventured to the dining hall for meals, spending all other moments in his room in rigorous training. Upon refining his 19th superior qi gathering pill, he finally reached the 3rd layer of qi refinement. Slowly, he opened his eyes and exhaled deeply. He wondered when Master Zhang would return. If the latter discovered his newfound cultivation, it could spell danger. Although he practiced the concealment technique, he was uncertain of Master Zhang's true level of cultivation. If the master were a formidable foundation-building expert, would he not expose himself? Nevertheless, based on Lu Feng's observations, Master Zhang appeared to be merely a late-stage qi refinement cultivator. After all, Lu Feng himself had once been a pinnacle qi refinement expert, and he could discern certain clues from Master Zhang's alchemical techniques and the flow of spiritual energy. To safeguard against any eventualities, Lu Feng resolved to elevate his cultivation to the 4th layer of qi refinement before departing. The Dan Yuan Pavilion was merely a temporary refuge to cultivate with undivided focus. He needed to distance himself from the influence of the Yunxiao sect. Indeed, he would wait until he reached the 4th layer of qi refinement before making any further decisions. As Lu Feng spoke, he rose and exited the room, the time outside indicating it was already a quarter past the hour of Su. By this hour, the night market of Yunxianfang had commenced. To sell the inferior qi gathering pills he had on hand, Lu Feng made his way directly to the alley from his previous visit. The area was ablaze with light, as bright as day, with hundreds of stalls lining either side of the alley. Without hesitation, Lu Feng proceeded to the center of the alley, seeking out the 2 middle-aged men who collected the management fees. "Good evening, brothers. I wish to rent a stall," Lu Feng announced. One of the burly men glanced at him and remarked, "Oh, it's you again. I heard you sold a batch of inferior chi gathering pills at a bargain last time. It seems you've made quite a profit." "Indeed. It's all thanks to you too. Here are the spirit stones for the stall rental," Lu Feng replied, handing over 2 inferior spirit stones. The burly man accepted the stones and smiled. "My young friend, I wonder if you plan to sell your inferior chi gathering pills at a discount again this time?" Upon hearing this, Lu Feng nodded. "Yes, I do intend to sell the inferior chi gathering pills." At this, the 2 men perked up and said, "Young brother, we actually have a need for the pills you possess. Would you consider selling us some?" Having previously accepted 2 of his inferior chi gathering pills as protection money, they were already aware of the quality of his pills. Moreover, given Lu Feng's remarkably low prices, anyone would wish to acquire some for personal use. Realizing their intent, Lu Feng smiled and responded, "Since you 2 have asked, how could I refuse? However, I am curious about how many you would like." The burly man, pleased with Lu Feng's willingness, laughed heartily. "Young brother, take note. We want as many as you have. However, the price must remain at your last selling rate." After pondering for a moment, Lu Feng concluded that selling to these 2 was just as good as selling to anyone else. "Brothers, I have 100 inferior chi gathering pills, which at the previous price amounts to 100 inferior spirit stones." Upon hearing this, the 2 burly men exchanged excited glances, their eyes sparkling with eagerness. "All right, we will take all 100 inferior chi gathering pills. Here are the spirit stones. Please count them," they declared. One of the men handed over a cloth bag, which Lu Feng accepted and opened to reveal exactly 100 inferior spirit stones. Satisfied with the transaction, Lu Feng promptly handed over the pills, saying, "Here are your pills, please keep them well." The 2 men inspected the quality of the pills thoroughly, their faces breaking into smiles of satisfaction. "Haha, young brother, you are indeed straightforward. If you have more of these pills in the future, we will take as many as you can provide." Lu Feng nodded with a smile. "Thank you for your patronage, brothers." As the transaction concluded, Lu Feng turned to leave, only to hear the burly man call out from behind, "Wait." Raising an eyebrow, Lu Feng turned back and asked, "Is there anything else you need, brothers?" The burly man extended his hand, offering 2 inferior spirit stones. "This is your stall management fee. Take it back." Lu Feng was taken aback when the other party unexpectedly refunded the management fee, catching him off guard. Accepting the 2 inferior spirit stones, Lu Feng clasped his hands in gratitude, expressing his appreciation for the goodwill of the 2 gentlemen. The other party waved their hands dismissively, stating that they were merely adhering to regulations. Since he had not set up a stall there, he naturally could not be charged a management fee. Lu Feng chose not to elaborate further, offering a respectful bow before departing. This time, he did not linger in the night market, but returned directly to the Dan Yuan Pavilion. He noticed that no strangers were following him this time, indicating that the individuals who had trailed him previously were likely the fierce, burly men. After Lu Feng exited the alley, 2 of the intimidating figures promptly resold the inferior gathering pills they had purchased, profiting by selling them for 1.5 inferior spirit stones each. One of the burly men chuckled and remarked, "Cousin, do you think that kid would be furious if he knew we sold his pills at a fair price?" "Huh. Why should we care if he is angry? That kid looks like a naive newcomer to the cultivation world. I wonder how he came by those pills," mused the fierce man. After a moment's thought, he continued, "Last time, Biaozi mentioned that this fellow is affiliated with the Dan Yuan Pavilion. Should we inform Manager Wang about it?" His cousin shook his head, saying, "Are you foolish? If we tell Manager Wang, how would we profit from this?" "Indeed, you have a point," said the burly man. "Well, the next time we see that kid, remember to intimidate him a bit, using Manager Wang as leverage to drive the price of the pills down." "Right, I excel at that. Leave it to me when the time comes." Chapter 13. An unexpected encounter with an inner disciple of the Yunxiao sect. Upon returning to the Dan Yuan Pavilion, Lu Feng dedicated the night to focused cultivation, resulting in the spirit power in his dantian coalescing to nearly 1/10 of its capacity. At this moment, he had only 4 supreme gathering pills remaining. To maintain his current pace of cultivation, he needed to continue acquiring materials for refining gathering pills. Additionally, Lu Feng estimated that to advance from the 3rd to the 4th layer of qi refinement, he would require at least 100 supreme gathering pills. Though it may seem a minor elevation, progressing to the 4th layer of qi refinement marked the mid-stage of that realm, while the 3rd layer was merely the initial stage, indicating a significant disparity between the two. The most pronounced difference lay in the capacity and quality of spirit power. Presently, Lu Feng could only sustain the refinement of 10 batches of first-tier inferior pills with his current spirit power total. Exceeding this amount would leave him unable to keep up with the demand for spirit power. Moreover, the quantity and quality of spirit power were crucial in combat. Hence, Lu Feng planned to break through to the fourth layer of qi refinement before departing from Yangtze Feng. With a clear objective in mind, Lu Feng quickly freshened up and made his way to the cafeteria for a bowl of thin porridge. At that moment, Chun San reappeared before him, reminding him that according to their agreement, the 3 days had elapsed, and it was now time for the transaction involving the waste pills. Good morning, Taoist Lu. Chun San greeted with a broad smile, having not seen him for several days. Lu Feng lifted his gaze to meet Chun San's eyes, instantly comprehending his intentions. He then produced a cloth bag and handed it over. Taoist Chun, here is what you requested. Please count it yourself. Receiving the bag, Chun San chuckled. Indeed. Taoist Lu is a man of integrity. I shall proceed with the count. He meticulously began to tally the contents, revealing a total of 75 dark, discarded pills. Among them, 15 had been rendered useless by Master Zhang, while the remaining 60 were the result of Lu Feng's own failed alchemical attempts. According to the price they had previously agreed upon, these 75 discarded pills amounted to 5 low-grade spirit stones. Once Chun San completed his counting, he promptly produced 5 low-grade spirit stones and handed them over. Taoist Lu, here are your spirit stones. Please accept them. Lu Feng took the stones and remarked, Master Zhang has been absent from the store lately, so you need not seek me out for discarded pills in the future. Understood, Chun San replied. In truth, many at the store were aware of Master Zhang's absence. Lu Feng's comment was merely a pretext for his impending departure. He harbored a persistent unease that Master Zhang would seek retribution upon his return. Thus it was prudent for him to cultivate to the 4th layer of qi refinement as swiftly as possible and leave this place. With that, Lu Feng exited the Danyuan Pavilion and made his way to the Xiandan building from his previous visit. There, he was greeted by the same attendant as before. The young server, recognizing a familiar patron, smiled and clasped his hands. Ah, it is the esteemed senior. Welcome. May I inquire if you wish to purchase medicinal materials or elixirs today? Lu Feng maintained a neutral expression and plainly stated, I require 10 sets of qi gathering dam materials. Here are the spirit stones. He produced 100 spirit stones and handed them over. Upon seeing the substantial bag of spirit stones, the attendant's smile widened. Please wait a moment. I shall retrieve the materials for you. Lu Feng nodded lightly and stood patiently. Before long, the attendant returned with 10 sets of qi gathering dam materials. Lu Feng inspected them and, finding everything in order, prepared to return to the Danyuan Pavilion. Just then, 3 elegantly dressed, haughty young men and women entered the Xiandan building. Lu Feng turned and immediately furrowed his brow. He recognized the trio as inner disciples of the Yunxiao sect's Xianjin Peak, Zhang Bin, Wang Hui, and Luo Yueling. Notably, Zhang Bin was the very individual he had injured 2 years prior during the sect's grand competition, causing him considerable harm with an exploding alchemical furnace. Damn it! How could I encounter these 3 here? Lu Feng cursed inwardly. Clearly, they were the inner disciples Chun San had mentioned passing through this area. At that moment, Wang Hui shouted, Where's everyone? Are you all blind? Don't you see we've come to purchase goods? The attendant promptly approached, wearing an apologetic expression. I sincerely apologize, esteemed seniors. I was momentarily negligent. Please forgive us. Wang Hui, appearing irate, retorted, Humph, what do you have to say to me? Get your manager out here. The young attendant displayed a moment of hesitation, yet the other party's gaze turned icy, emanating an air of threat. Yes, I shall summon the manager at once. Please wait a moment, esteemed seniors. Lu Feng observed Wang Hui's action silently, choosing not to comment. After all, his cultivation level was merely at the 3rd layer of the qi refinement stage, while these 3 possessed late-stage qi refinement prowess. Thus, it would be prudent for Lu Feng to depart swiftly. Should he be discovered by them, unnecessary trouble could ensue. As Lu Feng pondered his exit, the female disciple among the trio, Luo Yueling, suddenly took notice of him. She regarded Lu Feng's retreating figure with a contemplative expression, then raised her hand and pointed. Inquiring you. Yes, you. Turn around at once. Upon hearing her words, Lu Feng thought ill of his situation. It seemed he could not evade them this time. So he reluctantly turned to face her. Upon seeing Lu Feng, Luo Yueling was momentarily taken aback, then exclaimed in surprise, You are Lu Shi. No, it should be Lu Feng now. Previously, Lu Feng was a direct disciple of the Yunxiao sect, holding a status superior to that of inner disciples. Hence they would address him as Lu Shixiao. However, now that he had been expelled from the sect, they no longer needed to refer to him as such. With Luo Yuling's exclamation, the other 2 turned to look as well. Oh, I didn't expect it to truly be Lu Feng. Wang Hui raised an eyebrow, a smirk playing upon his lips. I had heard that Lu Shixiao was purportedly rendered powerless by the head of the Xianjin Peak, Yi, and expelled from the sect. Who would have thought we would encounter him here? As he spoke, Zhang Bin cast a cold glare at Lu Feng. Lu Feng, we meet again. With the 3 now recognizing him, Lu Feng felt a sense of calm wash over him. He replied evenly, "Indeed, it has been a long time. However, I am no longer a disciple of the Yunxiao sect, so there is no need for you to call me Lu Shixiao." Chapter 14. Humiliation and Unexpected Rescue. Upon hearing Lu Feng's statement, the trio scrutinized him closely, only to realize he bore no distinction from an ordinary person. With their cultivation levels, they could not perceive Lu Feng's concealed aura. Upon recognizing him as a mere mortal, a flicker of malice gleamed in Zhang Bin's eyes. "Lu Shixiao." Such words seem a bit distant. Though you have been expelled from the sect, our friendship remains intact. Now that you have become an ordinary person, it is only natural that we should take care of you. With that, Zhang Bin swiftly appeared before Lu Feng and struck with a powerful fist. Lu Feng's brow furrowed as he hastily raised his hand to block. However, with Zhang Bin's cultivation at the 7th layer of qi refinement, Lu Feng was no match for him in his current state. With a resounding thud, Lu Feng was sent flying, crashing into the store's display, which collapsed under the impact. Moments later, Lu Feng gritted his teeth and rose from the ground, having sustained some internal injuries from the blow, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. He had anticipated Zhang Bin's sudden attack, but regrettably, he could not withstand it. As Lu Feng lay unharmed, Zhang Bin's anger dissipated, replaced instead by a cruel smile. Just as Zhang Bin was poised to strike again, Luo Yuling interjected, "Brother Zhang, please hold." Her words halted Zhang Bin's actions, and he turned to her with a look of confusion. "Sister Luo, what do you mean by stopping me?" Luo Yuling glanced at Lu Feng before coldly remarking, "Brother Zhang, although Lu Feng has been expelled from the sect, he was once the personal disciple of Master Chun. If you were to kill him, it would surely displease Master Chun." The thought of Chun Hai from Danding Peak caused Zhang Bin to furrow his brows slightly. Within Yunxiao sect, aside from the sect leader and the grand elders, Chun Hai held the most prestige. If he were to incur Chun Hai's wrath, Zhang Bin, as a mere inner sect disciple, would undoubtedly face dire consequences. "Sister Luo, I appreciate your concern, but Lu Feng previously defeated me in the sect competition using underhanded tactics. I cannot let this grievance go unavenged." Upon hearing this, Luo Yuling smiled and said, "Ah, Brother Zhang, sometimes revenge does not necessitate murder." "Oh, what do you mean?" "Sister, naturally, we can humiliate Lu Feng thoroughly. I shall use a recording stone to capture the moment of his disgrace, and upon our return to the sect, we shall reveal it to all, allowing everyone to witness Lu Feng's current plight." Upon hearing Luo Yuling's proposal, a glint of interest sparked in Zhang Bin's eyes. "Excellent. Sister, your plan is truly remarkable." Luo Yuling glanced at Lu Feng and declared, "Since you find it agreeable, let us proceed." Just as Zhang Bin prepared to humiliate Lu Feng, the innkeeper of Xiandan Tower finally arrived in the hall, accompanied by a young attendant. Upon seeing the damage counter, the innkeeper frowned and approached Zhang Bin and his companions, cupping his hands in a gesture of respect. "Esteemed friends, I am the innkeeper of Xiandan Tower. I implore you, for the sake of my position, refrain from causing further disturbance here, or I shall have to report this to Yunxiao sect." The trio turned to the innkeeper, noting that he was also a late-stage qi refinement cultivator. At that moment, Wang Hui spoke up, "Humph, you are the innkeeper, are you? We are inner sect disciples of the Immortal Sword Peak, and it would be wise for you to mind your own business." Seeing their attitude, the innkeeper responded with a cold smile, "Ah, esteemed friends, this establishment is backed by the Law Enforcement Hall. You would do well to consider your actions." Upon hearing this, hesitation flickered in their eyes. Nonetheless, Zhang Bin stubbornly stated, "Innkeeper, if you refrain from intervening, we shall consider this a favor owed to you. We will compensate you for all the damages." The innkeeper shook his head with a smile. "If this were outside, you could fight to the death without me uttering a word. However, this is Xiandan Tower. I advise you to temper your actions." With that, Zhang Bin glanced at the innkeeper, then at Lu Feng, and declared, "Let us leave." As the trio departed, Lu Feng wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and respectfully bowed to the innkeeper. "I thank you for your timely intervention, and I shall remember this kindness." The shopkeeper cast a glance at Lu Feng and sighed, "Alas, I am not assisting you. I am merely upholding the regulations of the establishment." Lu Feng nodded, expressing his gratitude by presenting a top-tier qi-gathering pill. Upon seeing the exquisite pill, the shopkeeper's eyes widened in astonishment. He swiftly approached Lu Feng, taking the pill for closer inspection. As he examined it, the surprise in his eyes deepened. "Young friend, are you truly willing to offer this pill as a token of thanks?" the shopkeeper asked, excitement evident in his voice. "Indeed, it is genuine," Lu Feng affirmed, his expression serious. The shopkeeper, with a wave of his hand, accepted the qi-gathering pill and laughed heartily. "Ha ha. In that case, I shall graciously accept it." "Very well, if there is nothing further, I shall take my leave," Lu Feng said, preparing to turn away. However, the shopkeeper suddenly interjected, "Hold on, young brother. Lu Feng turned back, his expression one of confusion, wondering what further instructions the shopkeeper might have. Are you not concerned that the three individuals are waiting for you outside? The color drained from Lu Feng's face as he realized he had nearly forgotten that detail. If Zhang Bin and his companions were indeed waiting for him outside, it would spell certain doom for him. Seeing Lu Feng grasp the gravity of the situation, the shopkeeper continued, "If you trust me, follow me." Given the circumstances, Lu Feng felt he had no choice but to trust the shopkeeper and nodded. "All right, I shall rely on you." With that, Lu Feng followed the shopkeeper into the inner courtyard of the shop. Typically, such establishments feature a back door, yet the shopkeeper led him to a guest room, which piqued Lu Feng's curiosity. The shopkeeper gestured towards a chair, saying, "Please, have a seat. I brought you here for two reasons." "Oh, might I inquire what those reasons are?" Lu Feng replied. The shopkeeper chuckled. "I am already aware of the events that transpired between you and them. You must be the recently expelled inner disciple of the Yunxiao sect, correct?" Lu Feng raised an eyebrow, surprised that the shopkeeper was privy to this information. He nodded yes. "I am indeed the disciple you mentioned." Upon receiving Lu Feng's confirmation, the shopkeeper's expression shifted to one of understanding. "Ah, that explains why you possess such a top-tier qi-gathering pill." Lu Feng regarded the shopkeeper and then inquired, "May I ask what the two purposes for my visit here are?" "Youthful impatience is indeed a trait of the young," the shopkeeper remarked. "My intentions are quite simple. First, to help you evade the trouble posed by those three. Second, to inquire if you possess any more of these qi-gathering pills." Lu Feng's heart stirred as he realized the shopkeeper's motives were not purely altruistic, but rather driven by a desire for the qi-gathering pill. Understanding this, Lu Feng shook his head. "I possess only this one top-tier qi-gathering pill, which was bestowed upon me by my former master." To divert attention away from the qi-gathering pill, Lu Feng decided to present Chun Hai as a diversion. Upon hearing Lu Feng's response, the shopkeeper appeared to believe him. After all, Chun Hai is a Dan master of the nascent soul stage, so it is hardly surprising that he can concoct exquisite qi-gathering pills. It seems that Master Chen still holds some sentiment for his disciple. Whenever Lu Feng thinks of Chun Hai, he recalls the cold, disdainful gaze the latter cast upon him that day. Moreover, he remains unconvinced by the judgment rendered by the Yunxiao sect. Once he attains sufficient strength, he vows to return to the Yunxiao sect and reclaim all that was unjustly taken from him. Chapter 15. News of the Secret Realm in Lfong, Immortal City. The words of the shopkeeper at the Xiandan building not only reminded Lu Feng of the Yunxiao sect, but also brought to mind the master who had forsaken him. Chun Hai. Perhaps, he mused with a cold smile. If Chun Hai harbored any affection for him, he would not have allowed Yi Xianming to cripple him, nor would he have consented to the Yunxiao sect expelling him from the sect. Nevertheless, this is a truth known only to Lu Feng himself. Since he was brought into the Yunxiao sect by Chun Hai at the tender age of 10, he has diligently practiced for a decade without breaking through to the foundation establishment stage. Indeed, his cultivation speed has been exceedingly slow. It is worth noting that Lu Feng had previously enjoyed an abundance of cultivation resources and personal guidance from Chun Hai. Yet, even with such advantages, he failed to achieve a breakthrough in the foundation establishment stage. This, indeed, is a primary reason for Chun Hai's abandonment of him. As Lu Feng reminisced about the past, the shopkeeper spoke again, suggesting that Brother Lu should take refuge in the shop for a while, and only depart once the three individuals had left. Lu Feng nodded in agreement, expressing his gratitude to the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper continued, "You are too courteous, Brother Lu. As far as I know, these three have descended the mountain to explore a secret realm." "Oh, what secret realm might that be?" Lu Feng inquired. "This so-called secret realm is a small space crafted by the great powers of the cultivation world, wherein numerous treasures of the adept are concealed. Some major sects even manage to relocate their entire mountain gates into such secret realms, making it challenging for outsiders to discover them. However, should such a sect meet its demise, many magical artifacts, spiritual herbs, and elixirs would remain within the secret realm." Lu Feng had once visited such a secret realm when he was still a direct disciple. Thus he possesses a fair understanding of these matters. "I cannot speak of the specific secret realm," he continued, "but it seems these three are merely the first batch of disciples venturing forth. I have heard that more disciples from the Yunxiao sect will follow. Is that so? Might I inquire about the location of this secret realm?" The shopkeeper glanced at Lu Feng and shook his head. "Brother Lu, you currently lack any cultivation. Even if you knew the location of the secret realm, what would it matter? Do you intend to venture in?" Upon hearing this, Lu Feng instantly realized that the shopkeeper was likely privy to the secret realm's location. Thus, he clasped his hands in a gesture of respect and implored, "I beseech you to disclose the location of the secret realm. I assure you, I shall express my gratitude in the future." At present, he possesses nothing but the explosive furnace system to rely upon. Hence, he is eager to explore this secret realm, hoping to bolster his chances of vengeance in the future. Seeing the earnestness in his demeanor, the shopkeeper sighed and said, "Alas, since you are so resolute, I shall reveal it to you." In Lu Feng's eyes, a flicker of excitement shone as he began to attentively listen to the other party's account. It is said that this secret realm is located near the Lfong Immortal City, although its opening appears to be several months away. So it is indeed near Lfong Immortal City. Lu Feng had previously heard of this Lfong Immortal City, known to be an affiliated city of the Haoshuan sect. This Haoshuan sect is likewise a prominent righteous cultivation sect in the southern region, often clashing with the Yunxiao sect. Given that the Yunxiao sect would send disciples there, it was evident that many cultivators would partake in this secret realm. At that moment, a sudden knock resonated at the guest room door, prompting the innkeeper to slowly inquire. "What is it?" A voice from outside replied, "Innkeeper, the 3 troublemakers have already departed." "Ah, I see. You may return to your duties," the innkeeper responded. Then turned to Lu Feng with a smile, saying, "Brother Lu, now that those 3 have left, I can accompany you." Lu Feng immediately rose, clasping his hands in gratitude. "Thank you. That would be much appreciated." Subsequently, the innkeeper escorted Lu Feng to the back door of the establishment and remarked, "Brother Lu, should you encounter Master Chun, please convey my regards to him." Lu Feng nodded. "Very well, I shall take my leave." The innkeeper's willingness to assist him stemmed from his respect for Chun Hai and the precious qi gathering pills in Lu Feng's possession. Nonetheless, regardless of the circumstances, the innkeeper of the Xindan building had indeed saved him once. Should the opportunity arise, he would repay this kindness. Upon leaving the Xindan building, Lu Feng cautiously returned to the Dan Yuan pavilion, encountering none of Zhang Bin's group along the way. Upon reaching his room, before he could close the door, a mouthful of fresh blood was expelled uncontrollably. He had been enduring the internal injuries sustained earlier at the Xindan building. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, he shed his garments to inspect his body, revealing his arms and chest marred with dark bruises. Had he not elevated his cultivation to the 3rd layer of qi gathering, Zhang Bin's earlier strike could have cost him his life. "Zhang Bin, just you wait." At that moment, Lu Feng's eyes brimmed with murderous intent. However, to seek vengeance, he must swiftly enhance his cultivation. Zhang Bin, at the 7th layer of qi gathering, along with his accomplices Wang Hui and Luo Yuling, also at the 7th layer, meant that Lu Feng would need to reach at least the 8th layer to have a chance at revenge. Having contemplated this, Lu Feng promptly secured the door, cleaned the blood from the floor, and commenced his alchemical operations. After a series of 10 explosive furnace attempts, the system rewarded him with a total of 135 premium qi gathering pills and 100 inferior qi gathering pills. The latter would be reserved for future sales. With these premium qi gathering pills, he was well equipped to cultivate to the 4th layer of qi gathering. Thus, in the days that followed, Lu Feng remained secluded, spending his time in his room, apart from meals, diligently refining his skills. In this manner, a week swiftly passed. Lu Feng's cultivation had now ascended to the pinnacle of the 3rd layer of qi gathering, with the spiritual energy in his dantian reaching a state of perfection. At this moment, he produced a supreme qi gathering pill, muttering to himself in astonishment, "I never anticipated that within less than 2 weeks, I would ascend from an ordinary individual to the 4th level of the qi refining stage." Such a rate of cultivation would have been nothing short of extraordinary in the past. The reasons for his remarkable progress were twofold: the assistance of the supreme qi gathering pill and the unhindered advancement he experienced while refining his skills anew. Coupled with his previous insights into cultivation, this resulted in an astonishing rate of improvement. Having said this, Lu Feng swallowed the supreme qi gathering pill in one gulp and commenced his breakthrough. As the pill entered his abdomen, an abundance of pure spiritual energy emanated from it. With a thought, Lu Feng activated the Qingmu burning spirit technique to guide this energy in a cycle through the micro and macrocosmic circuits. Once the first strand of spiritual energy was completely refined, it coalesced into a stream of spiritual power that flowed into his dantian. The dantian, previously in a state of fullness, surged with vitality under the influence of this newfound energy. Subsequently, fresh strands of spiritual power began to flood into the dantian, causing its pulsation rate to escalate. In this state, the dantian gradually expanded, its capacity increasing correspondingly. Once the dantian was fully stabilized, its volume was approximately 1.5 times greater than before. Finally, he had successfully broken through to the 4th level of the qi refining stage. Chapter 16. Departing from Yunxian Square. Upon achieving this breakthrough, Lu Feng took a moment to solidify his new level of cultivation. After a week of training, only 40 supreme qi gathering pills remained. Although this seemed ample, it was insufficient for his journey ahead. He had initially planned to depart at the 4th level of the qi refining stage, but preparations were still necessary. First, He decided to sell the inferior qi-gathering pills he possessed, followed by acquiring materials for alchemical preparations on his journey. Resolute in his decision, Lu Feng rose and made his way to the Dan Yuan Pavilion's main hall. It was midday, and the establishment was bustling with patrons. After observing for a moment, he quickly spotted Chun San within the hall. He approached with purposeful strides and clasped his hands in greeting, saying, "Greetings, Taoist Chun." Upon recognizing Lu Feng, Chun San looked up, his face breaking into a smile as he returned the gesture. "Taoist Lu, it has been a few days. You appear to be in good spirits." "Ah, just a minor breakthrough. By the way, do you have any fasting pills in stock?" "Fasting pills, of course. How many would you like, Taoist Lu?" After a brief contemplation, Lu Feng inquired, "Do you also have the materials for fasting pills?" "Indeed, we do." "Excellent. Then I shall take 10 sets of fasting pill materials." Fasting pills are a type of elixir that hardly qualifies as even a first-tier pill, easily concocted by an alchemical apprentice. Thus the cost of materials is not exorbitant. Chun Sen nodded and promptly retrieved 10 sets of materials from the counter, presenting them. "Taoist Lu, the total for 10 sets of materials amounts to 5 low-grade spirit stones." Lu Feng handed over the spirit stones, and they exchanged goods. Since he was preparing to leave, it was essential to stock up on provisions. And fasting pills were the finest sustenance for cultivators. As the transaction concluded, just as Lu Feng prepared to depart, Chun Sen suddenly whispered, "Lu Daoyu, I have heard that Master Zhang is already on his way back. Do you still wish to proceed with our earlier discussed collaboration?" Startled by this revelation, Lu Feng realized he must vacate the Yunxian Square immediately. "Indeed, we shall proceed," Lu Feng replied with a composed demeanor. "Excellent, excellent." With that, Lu Feng exited the Dan Yuan Pavilion, fully resolved not to return. Shortly thereafter, he arrived at the Xian Dan building and produced a low-grade qi-gathering pill. Inquiring with the attendant, "My friend, does your esteemed establishment accept such elixirs?" The attendant examined the pill and, finding its quality satisfactory, responded, "We do accept them, though we can only offer 1.5 low-grade spirit stones per pill." Lu Feng nodded in agreement. "Very well. I have several more low-grade qi-gathering pills. Kindly assist me in selling all of them." He then handed over the remaining 100 pills, including one gifted to him by Master Zhang. Since he intended to leave, it was prudent to dispose of all unnecessary items. Upon seeing Lu Feng present such a substantial quantity of low-grade qi-gathering pills, a flicker of astonishment appeared in the attendant's eyes. "Very well, please wait a moment while I tally them." Lu Feng silently acquiesced, patiently awaiting the outcome. As the attendant counted the pills, Lu Feng noticed several pairs of eyes scrutinizing him, predominantly from customers entering to purchase elixirs. Paying no heed to their gazes, Lu Feng's priority was to swiftly sell the pills and acquire the materials needed for crafting qi-gathering pills before departing. After all, he had no intention of lingering in Yunxian Square, so what if he attracted attention? Before long, the attendant completed the count and handed Lu Feng a pouch of low-grade spirit stones. "Esteemed friend, there are a total of 152 low-grade spirit stones here, and consider half a stone as a gift from our establishment." Lu Feng refrained from accepting the stones, instead stating, "Please procure the materials for 15 sets of qi-gathering pills, using these spirit stones for the purchase." The attendant's expression brightened, his demeanor improving considerably. "Of course. Please wait a moment." Lu Feng's transaction had yielded a significant commission for the attendant, thus the change in attitude. Soon, the attendant returned with the materials for 15 sets of qi-gathering pills, along with 2 low-grade spirit stones. After a swift inspection, Lu Feng confirmed everything was in order and turned to leave. Upon exiting the Xindan building, he did not return to the Dan Yuan Pavilion but instead headed eastward. However, as he departed, 2 individuals discreetly followed him. Lu Feng feigned unawareness, continuing his solitary path towards the market's exit. Once outside the market, he swiftly stored the medicinal herbs and low-grade spirit stones into his system space, then took off running towards the east. By the time the 2 pursuers emerged from the market, Lu Feng had already put considerable distance between them. "Damn it, the brat has noticed us. Quick, pursue him," one of the men clad in dark robes exclaimed. As the words fell, the 2 individuals swiftly affixed a talisman to their legs and hastened in pursuit of Lu Feng's fleeing figure. Although Lu Feng was not lacking in speed, the swiftness of these 2 was astonishing. A glance over his shoulder filled him with alarm. It was evident they had employed a windwalk talisman. It seemed he could not shake them off. However, Lu Feng was not overly fearful, for both adversaries shared his cultivation level, being at the 4th layer of the qi refinement stage. Even if they managed to corner him, it would merely result in a confrontation. After a brief chase, Lu Feng was finally overtaken by the 2. One was clad in black robes, while the other donned green attire, both appearing to be over 30 years of age. At that moment, the middle-aged man in black suddenly spoke, "Kid, hand over everything of value you possess. If you are wise, we may spare your life. To these two, Lu Feng appeared to be an ordinary individual devoid of any cultivation. Furthermore, having distanced themselves from Yunxian Square, they felt emboldened in their audacity. Observing their arrogant demeanor, Lu Feng smirked coldly. What if I refuse? The black-clad man's expression darkened, and he threatened, you seek death, do you? No, no, no. It is you two who are courting death. With that, Lu Feng raised a finger, and immediately, two vines sprang forth from beneath their feet. Before they could react, the vines ensnared them completely. Witnessing this scene, the man in black exclaimed in astonishment, how can you cast spells? This is bad, we've been tricked. As he spoke, he expelled a talisman from his mouth, which emitted a golden light that enveloped him. Meanwhile, the man in green remained bewildered. But Lu Feng had already begun to weave his hands into a series of intricate gestures, followed by a soft incantation, true fire technique, ignite. As Lu Feng's words echoed, the vines binding his foes ignited in flames. The fire blazed with increasing intensity, its heat several times more potent than ordinary flames. This true fire technique was a high-grade mystic spell Lu Feng had previously learned at the Yunxiao sect, far surpassing the yellow-grade spells in potency. The hierarchy of spells and techniques is categorized into 4 tiers: Heaven, Earth, Mystic, and Yellow, with the Yellow tier being the lowest and the Heaven tier the highest. The true fire technique was primarily intended for his alchemical endeavors. Yet its power was formidable enough to annihilate opponents at the 4th layer of the Qi refinement stage in a single strike. As the flames roared to life, the man in green was consumed by the inferno within mere moments. The man in black, however, was barely able to withstand the onslaught due to the protective golden talisman. Yet, the talisman was ultimately obliterated by the true fire technique. Simultaneously, the vines at his feet were incinerated, allowing the black-clad man to leap backward, creating distance between himself and Lu Feng. In the span of just a few breaths, Lu Feng had dispatched one opponent and wounded another, his terrifying prowess leaving the man in black momentarily paralyzed between fleeing and staying. Observing the disheveled state of the man, Lu Feng sneered. Did you not just demand that I surrender my possessions? Why do you now retreat? Have you changed your mind? Provoked by Lu Feng's words, the man's expression darkened. So, you two are at the 4th level of Qi cultivation. I did not expect you to conceal your strength so well. Lu Feng remained coldly silent, awaiting the man's next move. Should the man choose to flee, Lu Feng would have no choice but to let him go, especially since the man bore a wind flight talisman that would allow him to escape swiftly. Noticing Lu Feng's inaction, the man cast a glance at his charred companion, a fierce glint emerging in his eyes. I will remember you, boy. Wait for me. With that, the man seemed poised to flee, but, as he turned, he suddenly hurled a small black orb at Lu Feng. The orb was no larger than a human eye, yet Lu Feng did not dare underestimate it. He immediately employed the Vinewood technique to intercept the black sphere. However, as the orb struck the ground, it unexpectedly shifted, transforming into a black beetle. Instantly alert, Lu Feng recognized this creature from his readings. It was known as the devouring spirit beetle, notorious for consuming the spiritual energy of cultivators. Despite its classification as a first-tier spirit insect, it could swiftly drain the life force of a Qi cultivator upon contact. At that moment, the devouring spirit beetle, drawn by the spiritual energy within Lu Feng, sped toward him with alarming swiftness. Faced with such a creature, Lu Feng knew escape was futile. In response, he formed incantations with his hands, unleashing torrents of fire from his fingertips. Yet, upon contact, the flames were instantaneously consumed by the beetle. To the creature, Lu Feng's flames were merely transformed spiritual energy, and thus, easily devoured. Realizing that his attack was ineffective, Lu Feng cursed under his breath and took flight, knowing he was ill-equipped to contend with such a menace. If he had any offensive treasures at his disposal, the situation might have been different. However, bereft of any means of defense, he had no choice but to flee and avoid certain death. Watching Lu Feng's frantic escape, the man in black wore a cruel smile. Huh, you think you can escape the clutches of the devouring spirit beetle? You must be dreaming. Due to the beetle's superior speed, it caught up to Lu Feng in less than 5 breaths. Just as the creature prepared to strike, a dark, circular alchemical furnace came crashing down. With a resounding thud, the devouring spirit beetle was struck to the ground, and before it could take flight again, the furnace continued its relentless assault. Bang, bang, bang. Under Lu Feng's frenzied onslaught, the beetle was quickly reduced to a pulpy mass. Upon witnessing the insect's demise, Lu Feng carefully stowed away the alchemical furnace and exhaled a sigh of relief. Phew, that was close. I nearly met my end. Had it not been for the meager reward from the system, he surely would have perished in that encounter. With the death of the soul-devouring beetle, the cloaked man in the distance turned and fled without uttering a word. Lu Feng cast a glance at the man, committing his visage to memory. Should they cross paths again, he would not hesitate to act decisively. Once the figure was a safe distance away, Lu Feng approached the lifeless body of the green-clad man. The corpse had been charred beyond recognition, its form unidentifiable. Crouching down, Lu Feng rummaged through the remains until he uncovered a storage pouch nestled within his grasp. How unexpected. This individual possesses a storage pouch, which will save me some expenses. Although he had access to the system's spatial storage, it was prudent to conceal it from prying eyes. Thus, a storage pouch was infinitely more convenient. Subsequently, Lu Feng infused a trace of spiritual energy into the pouch, causing it to spring open. Inside, he found 120 low-grade spirit stones, 10 low-grade chi gathering pills, and a tome of martial arts. Not too shabby. Let's see what this tome entails. With a flick of his wrist, he deposited the spirit stones and chi gathering pills into the system's space and secured the storage pouch to his waist before perusing the martial arts text. Upon examination, he discovered it was a technique known as the Five Thunder Arts. However, Lu Feng lacked the thunder attribute spiritual root, and given that this technique was merely of superior yellow rank, it would hold little value for him. Regrettable, a thunder-based art is ill-suited for my cultivation. I shall seek to sell it at the next marketplace. With that, Lu Feng executed a hand gesture, summoning a vine spell that swiftly enveloped the green-clad man's body. The vines then burrowed into the earth, interring the corpse. After disposing of the body, Lu Feng continued his journey eastward, well aware that the cloaked figure had likely long since departed. The eastward path led directly to the city of Lfong. According to his recollections, the journey from Yunxian Market to Lfong City would take approximately a week. Along the way, he anticipated encountering another cultivation marketplace, where he intended to restock on talismans and magical artifacts, thereby enhancing his defensive and operational capabilities. Chapter 18. An unexpected encounter at the ruined temple. After traveling for 2 hours, evening descended, casting a warm glow as Lu Feng observed the setting sun. It seems I shan't reach the next cultivation market today. In search of a place to spend the night, he began surveying his surroundings. Shortly, he stumbled upon a dilapidated earth deity temple not far off. Upon closer inspection, he noted the temple's entrance was marred by a gaping hole, and the idol within lay shattered. I shall rest here for the night, and continue my journey come morning. With that, Lu Feng stepped inside, clearing a patch of ground to sit down and meditate. Having walked for an entire afternoon, Lu Feng felt a pang of hunger as soon as he sat down. Thus, he promptly retrieved a small, battered furnace from his system space and took out the materials for the fasting pill, placing them into the cauldron. I wonder if this inferior grade pill will yield any system rewards if the furnace explodes? To test his hypothesis, Lu Feng decided to induce an explosion while crafting a fasting pill. After a quarter of an hour of material refinement, the contents of the furnace had transformed entirely into a syrupy liquid. Lu Feng then directed a surge of spiritual energy into the small furnace. Under the pressure of this energy, the liquid could no longer withstand the strain and emitted a muffled sound. Boom. The force of the explosion was considerable, sending Lu Feng hurtling backward. His body collided with a nearby wall, resulting in a pained cry. Ouch! The impact left him sore all over, though fortunately, he sustained no serious injuries. Slowly rising from the ground, Lu Feng dusted himself off and muttered, "Goodness, how can such an inferior grade pill possess such tremendous explosive power? I never encountered such force while refining chi gathering pills or body tempering pills." Filled with confusion, Lu Feng quickly approached the small furnace. After a thorough inspection, he found it to be intact. How could it withstand such force? Truly perplexing. Although the explosion was indeed more powerful this time, it paled in comparison to the force he had experienced when he detonated a furnace at the Yunxiao sect. Nevertheless, the system's reward furnace proved remarkably resilient. After a brief pause, Lu Feng directed another thread of spiritual energy into the furnace, causing the right side aperture to gradually open, and 10 dark pills flew out in an instant. Beep. You have triggered a 10-fold return reward for exploding the furnace while refining fasting pill. Please select your reward. Reward 1, 100 inferior fasting pills. Reward 2, 30 superior fasting pills. Reward 3, 15 exquisite fasting pills. Upon hearing the system's prompt echo in his mind, Lu Feng's expression conveyed his realization. It appeared that regardless of the grade of pill he refined, an explosion would yield corresponding rewards. Without hesitation, Lu Feng chose reward 3. Beep. Congratulations, you have obtained 15 exquisite fasting pills. The pills have been placed into your system space. Please check them at your convenience. Hearing that the rewards had been issued, Lu Feng promptly retrieved 1 exquisite fasting pill from his system space. Gazing at the pill in his hand, which was round and lustrous, he swallowed it in one gulp. As the fasting pill settled in his stomach, Lu Feng quickly found his hunger dissipating. Typically, One fasting pill could sustain a person for a month without food. He wondered how long the exquisite variant would last. Just as Lu Feng began to feel the effects of the fasting pill, a figure suddenly appeared outside the door, exclaiming, "I wondered why there was a burnt odor. It seems someone has exploded a furnace here." The voice was deep and weathered, unmistakably that of an elderly person. As the words fell, Lu Feng immediately assumed a combat stance, gazing towards the entrance. In the next moment, an elderly man with unkempt brown hair, dressed in tattered garments, limped in with the aid of a cane. "Do not be alarmed, young friend," he chuckled. "I am merely a traveler seeking shelter for the night as darkness descends." Upon entering, the old man readily shared his circumstances. Lu Feng scrutinized the old man closely and discerned that he possessed no evident cultivation. His attire bore a striking resemblance to that of a beggar, yet his eyes sparkled with an unusual brightness, unlike the murky gaze often seen in the elderly. After listening to the old man, Lu Feng gradually retracted his hostility and cupped his hands in greeting. "Esteemed elder, I am honored. I too am merely passing through, intending to spend the night here." Although the old man appeared ordinary, they were situated between two cultivation markets, where common folk seldom ventured, especially as night enveloped the land. The old man smiled faintly. "Well then, I shall not be courteous any longer." With that, he settled onto the dusty floor without a care for the filth. Observing this, Lu Feng chose not to comment further and waved his hand to store his small stove into the system space. He had initially intended to refine other materials along with it, but the arrival of an outsider in the dilapidated temple necessitated a halt to his plans. Casting another glance at the old man, Lu Feng noted that he was oblivious to his presence, so he sat down and began to meditate. Time passed slowly as the two men sat in the dimly lit room, the old man even beginning to snore. As the night deepened, a sudden gust of wind swept outside, causing the temple's windows to rattle ominously. The commotion jolted Lu Feng awake. He promptly opened his eyes to assess the situation outside. The world beyond was shrouded in darkness, the howling wind the only sound echoing through the night. As time wore on, the gale intensified, stirring an unsettling feeling within Lu Feng, as if something sinister was about to unfold. Watching the windows sway perilously, he prepared to rise and secure them. At that moment, the elderly man suddenly interjected, "Youngster, if you wish to live, do not move recklessly." Lu Feng halted, his body freezing mid-motion. "Elder, what do you mean by that?" The old man grasped his cane and gradually stood, instructing, "Just heed my words, and do not concern yourself with anything else." With that, he made his way towards the entrance. Intrigued by the old man's mysterious demeanor, Lu Feng resolved to follow and uncover the situation. However, just then, the old man raised his voice towards the outside. "You've pursued me for so long. Will you ever cease?" At this proclamation, Lu Feng abruptly halted and lifted his gaze towards the entrance. To his astonishment, the howling wind outside ceased, and a stunning woman clad in resplendent white attire descended from a beam of light before the temple's threshold. The moment Lu Feng beheld her, his eyes widened in disbelief. The beauty of the woman in white was truly breathtaking, deserving of the phrase "a beauty that could topple cities." Coupled with her ethereal aura, she seemed akin to the celestial maidens of the heavens. "You wretched beggar, why do you persist in avoiding me? Were your previous words nothing but deceit?" Chapter 19. The Wine Sword Immortal and the Wind Ming Fairy. The beggar sighed at the words of the enchanting woman. "Alas, dear Wind Ming Fairy, the things I said earlier were but jest. How could you take them to heart? A jest? You defeated me before so many witnesses, and you claim it was all in jest? Ah, but you and your Wind Ming demon sect captured disciples from my sect, leaving me no choice but to act against you. I care not. Since you have bested me, you must fulfill the promise of that day and become my Tao companion." Upon hearing this, Lu Feng, who was concealed within the dilapidated temple, began to piece together the circumstances between the two. This old beggar was no ordinary man. He was a powerful cultivator, while the beauty in white was none other than the saintess of the Wind Ming demon sect, renowned as the Wind Ming Fairy. He had heard of her during his time at the Cloud Sky Sect, though she was a formidable figure at the nascent soul stage, and the old beggar likely shared the same level of prowess. However, Lu Feng had also heard tales of the Wind Ming Fairy's ruthlessness. Merely meeting her gaze could lead to instant demise. Now caught between these two, and privy to their secrets, he feared for his life should the Wind Ming Fairy take offense. As he pondered his predicament, the old beggar spoke again. "Wind Ming Fairy, you know that we exist in opposition to one another. Moreover, my time is limited. Do not pursue me further." Seeing the beggar's resolute stance, the Wind Ming Fairy's expression grew colder. She cast a glance at Lu Feng within the temple and declared, "Very well. If you are so heartless, I shall force your hand." With that, she raised a hand and summoned hundreds of beams of white sword light aimed at the beggar. Yet, the old beggar displayed no fear, shaking his head in resignation. Windming Fairy, why must you resort to this? Would it not be better to return to your role as the saintess of the demon sect? As he spoke, the beggar effortlessly waved his cane, conjuring a barrier of sword energy that intercepted the incoming white beams. In response, the Windming Fairy raised her hand once more, then swiftly appeared within the dilapidated temple. Before Lu Feng could react, she seized his shoulder and lifted him into the air. At this sight, Lu Feng's heart raced with terror. As a mere fourth-layer Qi refinement cultivator, he was utterly powerless against a being of her caliber. Now in her grasp, he could only contemplate how he might meet his end. The old beggar looked up at the Windming Fairy, his brow furrowed. What is between us does not concern this young man. I advise you not to harm the innocent. With a cold smile, the Windy Fairy remarked, Heh, old beggar. If you agree to become my Tao partner, I shall release this child. If not, you may as well collect his remains. The old beggar glanced at Lu Feng, sighed deeply, and replied, If you wish to kill him, then do so. After all, I have only just met this child. Observing the old beggar's demeanor, the Windy Fairy furrowed her brows slightly and retorted, Old beggar, do you truly believe I would trust your words? Whether you believe it or not. If you intend to kill, then proceed. Very well, I shall grant your request. As the two engaged in their heated exchange, Lu Feng felt a chill run down his spine. In his heart, he could not help but mutter, Wait a moment. What does your quarrel have to do with me? Just as the Windy Fairy was about to strike Lu Feng, a sudden flash of azure sword light erupted from the ground. The unexpected appearance of this sword light compelled the Windy Fairy to abandon her attack on Lu Feng and focus entirely on countering the onslaught of the Azure Blade. Seizing the opportunity, the old beggar swiftly teleported to Lu Feng's side, rescuing him in the nick of time. As they landed, Lu Feng intended to express his gratitude to the old beggar, but upon raising his gaze, he saw the Windy Fairy's assault returning. Old beggar, you claim this child is of no concern to you. Now I shall slay him. Faced with the onslaught of blinding white sword light, Lu Feng felt a surge of panic. At that moment, the old beggar whispered to him, Hold on tight. Lu Feng was momentarily taken aback. Yet the old beggar had already transported them away. In that instant, Lu Feng felt as though the world was spinning around him, utterly disoriented. After a brief moment, his vision finally cleared, revealing that they were no longer amidst the dilapidated temple, though the old beggar remained by his side. Ahem, esteemed senior. Where are we? Lu Feng hurriedly inquired. The old beggar did not respond to his question. Instead, he produced a leather blanket and draped it over them both. Shoo, do not speak. Lie down quickly. Once that madwoman departs, we will be safe. Understanding the gravity of the situation, Lu Feng complied, and the two lay beneath the blanket. Before long, a fierce wind swept above them, unmistakably heralding the arrival of the Windy Fairy. Lu Feng was so frightened that he held his breath. Finally comprehending the terrifying nature of those from the demonic path, they were quick to take lives, which was utterly monstrous. Soon, the gust began to dissipate from the area. And just as Lu Feng prepared to rise, the old beggar pressed him down once more. Do not rush. Wait a moment longer. That madwoman is known for her unpredictable strikes. Hearing this, Lu Feng swallowed hard and once again lay flat. After a quarter of an hour had passed, the old beggar finally removed the blanket and stood up slowly. Ah, that madwoman is truly relentless, like a stubborn adhesive that cannot be shaken off. Seeing this, Lu Feng quickly rose to his feet, brushed off the dust from his clothes, and clasped his hands in gratitude. I am Lu Feng, the junior. I am immensely grateful for your life-saving assistance. The old beggar merely waved his hand dismissively, saying, There is no need for such formalities. It is sufficient that you do not blame me for drawing trouble upon you. The young man dared not express any grievance. It was already a great honor for him that the senior had chosen to intervene on his behalf. The old beggar chuckled softly, stating that although he did not believe in fate, since their paths had crossed, he would bestow upon the young man a token as a greeting gift. With that, he tossed a piece of jade token to Lu Feng, which bore the inscription of Danxiao on one side and the character for wine on the reverse. Upon holding the jade token, Lu Feng was suddenly reminded of a righteous sect in the southern region known as the Danxiao sect. This sect, while not as renowned as the Yunxiao sect, possessed equal strength and depth of heritage. Realizing the beggar's affiliation, Lu Feng bowed respectfully once more, acknowledging, So you are indeed from the Danxiao sect. I am honored to meet you. The old beggar continued, Since you are aware of the Danxiao sect, you must understand the significance of this token. Lu Feng nodded, fully cognizant of its implications. The Danxiao sect's token, when given to an outsider, held two meanings. First, it allowed the bearer to request the Danxiao sect's assistance in matters aligned with righteousness. Second, it served as a means to apply for membership, whereby passing an evaluation would grant entry into the sect. In response to the elder's words, Lu Feng affirmed, I am aware of the token's meaning. The old beggar, glancing towards the distant sky, revealed a look of resignation. Ah, that madwoman has returned. I shall divert her attention. You should hasten your departure from here. Taken aback by the beggar's words, Lu Feng quickly clasped his hands together in gratitude. Understood. I shall remember your advice. By the way, may I inquire about your esteemed name? The old beggar did not respond to Lu Feng's question, but instead turned and soared into the sky. Moments later, a voice echoed from above. Fairy Feng Ming, I, the wine sword immortal, am here. If you have the capability, come chase after me. With that, the old beggar transformed into a streak of light, vanishing into the distance. Witnessing this spectacle, Lu Feng's eyes sparkled. He had certainly heard of the illustrious title of the wine sword immortal. Even his previous master, Chen Hai, spoke highly of this individual. Suddenly, Lu Feng realized something and exclaimed in exasperation, "Oh no. Senior, why are you heading east? How am I supposed to reach Lfong City now?" With that, Lu Feng took off running towards the east. Chapter 20, Arrival at Tianqian Square. Although Lu Feng voiced his concerns, he steeled himself and continued towards Lfong City. After a night filled with extraordinary encounters, he ran fervently and finally arrived at the next cultivation market at dawn. This market was named Tianqian Square. Though it was not as extensive as Yinqian Square, it still boasted a considerable number of shops. Upon entering the market, Lu Feng sought out an inn to settle down. With his first pot of gold now in hand, he no longer needed to pursue the path of an alchemical apprentice. Once in his room, he took a refreshing bath and then consumed a premium qi gathering pill, commencing his cultivation. To participate in the secret realm of the Windstorm Immortal City a few months hence, it is evident that his current cultivation level is insufficient. According to Lu Feng's aspirations, he must elevate his cultivation to at least the 8th layer of the qi refining stage. However, advancing from the 4th to the 8th layer typically requires a span of 1 to 2 years. Fortunately, with the aid of the extraordinary qi gathering pills and his prior cultivation experience, he anticipates that reaching the 8th layer will not pose a significant challenge. He estimates that with diligent practice over the course of 3 to 4 months, he can achieve this goal. As his cultivation level advances, the speed at which he refines the qi gathering pills has also increased considerably. Nonetheless, to break through to the 5th layer of the qi refining stage, he will require no fewer than 200 of these pills. After 2.5 days of rigorous training, Lu Feng finally refined the last of his qi gathering pills. At this juncture, the total amount of spiritual energy in his dantian has reached 1/5 of its capacity. At this rate, with approximately 10 more days of effort, he will be poised to ascend to the 5th layer. Consequently, Lu Feng ceased his training and slowly opened his eyes, realizing it was time to initiate the furnace explosion. However, before doing so, he pondered over the selection of rewards for this endeavor. He decided to choose 10 qi gathering pills for his cultivation, while opting for 4 ordinary low-grade qi gathering pills and 1 high-grade qi gathering pill for sale from the remaining 5 rewards. Having settled on his decision, Lu Feng retrieved the necessary materials and his small furnace to commence the alchemical process. Half an hour later, a muffled bang resonated through his room, significantly louder than previous explosions. Even Lu Feng himself was jolted back several meters. I clearly controlled the compression of the spiritual energy. Why did this explosion's force increase? Lu Feng's expression was one of confusion as he approached the small furnace to investigate. Upon inspection, the furnace showed no signs of damage. Yet the recent explosion's power was indeed greater. After some contemplation, Lu Feng surmised that his heightened cultivation level had upgraded the quality of his spiritual energy, thus amplifying the compression force. To test this hypothesis, Lu Feng reduced the amount of spiritual energy he input into the small furnace. As the energy diminished, the force of the liquid's compression also weakened. Nevertheless, under Lu Feng's meticulous control, he ultimately succeeded in triggering another explosion. With a resounding thud, Lu Feng coughed lightly, finding this level of explosion manageable. Indeed, by merely reducing the spiritual energy, I can regulate the explosion's power. Just as he was about to lift the furnace lid, an unusual thought struck him. Given the current amount of spiritual energy in his dantian, what would happen if he were to funnel all of it into the small furnace at once? Previously, during his alchemical endeavors at the Azure Sect, furnace explosions had frequently occurred, often against his wishes, and the resulting power had been formidable. It was effortless to injure cultivators of the same level, and even foundation-building experts had suffered injuries from his explosions. Previously, efforts were painstakingly devoted to the refinement of elixirs. However, now, he merely needed to cause them to explode, considerably reducing the difficulty. This newfound approach granted him ample room for experimentation. Lu Feng gazed at the modest furnace before him, contemplating whether to attempt a grand explosion. Yes, I shall complete this batch of materials before endeavoring to create a larger explosion. With resolve, Lu Feng proceeded to detonate all 15 portions of qi gathering pills. Once the furnace was finished, he found himself in possession of several hundred pills of varying grades. Observing the twilight outside, he decided to postpone selling the elixirs until the following day. With that, Lu Feng consumed a premium qi gathering pill and resumed his cultivation. The night swiftly passed, and as the morning sun illuminated the earth, Lu Feng concluded his practice, quickly freshened up, and exited his chamber. At that moment, the market was bustling with cultivators traversing the streets. Lu Feng scanned his surroundings before making his way to a nearby apothecary. This time, he intended not only to sell his elixirs, but also to acquire some protective artifacts and talismans. Upon entering the store, a young woman promptly approached him. "Good morning, esteemed guest. Our establishment buys and sells various grades of elixirs. May I inquire what you wish to purchase?" Lu Feng surveyed the shop and noticed only 2 cultivators in the hall purchasing elixirs. Therefore, he spoke up. "I wish to sell qi gathering pills. Do you accept them here?" The young woman smiled and nodded. "Of course we do." Without hesitating, Lu Feng produced a low-grade qi gathering pill and offered it to her. "How many spirit stones will you pay for this?" After inspecting the pill, the young woman replied, "This is a low-grade qi gathering pill. Our shop will purchase it for 1.5 low-grade spirit stones. Does this price satisfy you?" Lu Feng nodded, then waved his hand, conjuring a heavy cloth bag into his grasp. "Here are 400 low-grade qi gathering pills. Please count them." Upon hearing his words, the young woman's eyes widened in astonishment, and she eagerly took the bag to inspect its contents. The more she examined, the greater her surprise became. "Esteemed guest, you truly possess 400 low-grade qi gathering pills. According to the earlier price, that totals 600 low-grade spirit stones. Very well, let us commence the transaction." The young woman swallowed hard, excitement evident in her demeanor. "Certainly. Please wait a moment while I fetch the spirit stones." With that, she hurried into the store's inner courtyard. Such a transaction exceeded her authority, necessitating her to inform the shopkeeper. Meanwhile, Lu Feng's activities captured the attention of the 2 other patrons. Glancing at them, he discerned they were merely at the 3rd level of qi refinement, and thus returned his gaze, patiently awaiting the young woman's return. Chapter 21. First Grade Superior Spirit Sword, the Jade Longsword. Moments later, the young woman emerged alongside a middle-aged man. A middle-aged man approached Lu Feng with a broad smile and said, "Esteemed guest, I am the proprietor of this establishment. I have verified the low-grade qi gathering pills you sold earlier, and here is your payment. Please do take a look." He handed over a plump cloth bag. Lu Feng accepted the bag and quickly glanced inside, confirming the quantity of spirit stones was satisfactory. He then cupped his hands in gratitude, saying, "Indeed, the spirit stones are in order. By the way, I require materials for the refinement of 20 batches of qi gathering pills. May I inquire about the cost?" Upon hearing Lu Feng's request, the shopkeeper immediately recognized that Lu Feng might be an alchemy apprentice, likely under the tutelage of a skilled alchemist, as it was improbable for one to produce such a large quantity of low-grade qi gathering pills alone. "Oh, the materials for refining qi gathering pills are priced at 10 low-grade spirit stones per batch. However, considering your substantial transaction with us, I shall extend a 10% discount," he replied, casting a discreet glance at a young woman, signaling her to fetch the materials. Lu Feng nodded appreciatively, saying, "Thank you, esteemed shopkeeper." The shopkeeper replied, "No need for such formality. Business is about mutual support. Should you wish to sell more qi gathering pills in the future, feel free to approach me directly, and I assure you the prices will be to your satisfaction." Lu Feng merely nodded in acknowledgement, settled the payment, and departed from the alchemy shop with the materials in hand. As he stepped onto the street of the market, Lu Feng noticed 2 individuals trailing behind him. Though he had not seen them before, he surmised they were likely sent by the alchemy shop to ascertain his identity. He chose to remain silent and headed straight into another shop specializing in magical artifacts. Upon entering, a young attendant greeted him warmly. "Welcome, esteemed guest. Our shop boasts the most comprehensive selection of magical artifacts within Tianqian Square. What type of artifact do you seek?" Lu Feng surveyed the shop's offerings and observed a significant number of first-tier spiritual instruments, predominantly of low-grade quality, with only a few mid-grade items available. He was in search of a first-tier upper-grade spiritual sword, as he had wielded a superb spiritual sword during his time at the Yunxiao sect. "Excuse me, does your establishment have any first-tier upper-grade spiritual swords for sale?" Lu Feng inquired. The attendant appeared momentarily taken aback, then smiled and replied, "To be honest, we do have first-tier upper-grade spiritual swords, but the price is." Lu Feng smiled gently, saying, "Price is not a concern. I simply require a sword that feels right." Sensing Lu Feng's financial ease, the attendant's eyes sparkled with excitement. "Please wait here. I will fetch the sword for you immediately." "Very well, go ahead," Lu Feng replied. As the attendant departed, Lu Feng began to contemplate the pricing of upper-grade spiritual swords. A typical low-grade spiritual sword costs around 50 low-grade spirit stones, while a mid-grade spiritual sword commands a price of 150 low-grade spirit stones. As for upper-grade spiritual swords, their price typically reaches 500 low-grade spirit stones. With 553 low-grade spirit stones in his possession, Lu Feng was more than capable of purchasing an upper-grade spiritual sword. Soon, the attendant returned, accompanied by a sturdy middle-aged man. The burly man scrutinized Lu Feng before speaking. "I am the proprietor of this establishment. I hear you seek to purchase a first-tier superior spirit sword?" Lu Feng raised his gaze, noting that the middle-aged man was not only robust, but also possessed a cultivation level at the late stage of chi refinement. Judging by his appearance, he was likely a weaponsmith. Thus, Lu Feng clasped his hands in a respectful gesture and replied, "Indeed, I am interested in acquiring a superior spirit sword." The middle-aged man nodded and, with a flick of his wrist, produced a long azure sword. This weapon was crafted from jade cold iron, and in terms of material quality, it was not inferior to that of a premium spirit sword. "If you are interested, I shall part with it for 600 low-grade spirit stones," he stated. The moment the sword emerged, it emanated a chill that captivated Lu Feng's attention. However, the price set by the proprietor posed a dilemma for him. "Ahem, esteemed shopkeeper. This sword is indeed impressive, yet might you consider lowering the price?" Lu Feng attempted to negotiate. The shopkeeper shook his head. This sword was originally intended to be forged into a premium spirit sword, but unforeseen circumstances during its creation led to it being classified as a superior spirit sword. Selling it for 600 low-grade spirit stones is already quite reasonable. If you wish to haggle further, I suggest you explore other shops. Lu Feng furrowed his brow, taken aback by the shopkeeper's unwillingness to negotiate. Yet, the azure sword was undeniably remarkable, nearly comparable to his previous premium spirit sword. Given that the price for a first-tier premium spirit sword typically exceeded 1,000 low-grade spirit stones, the offered price seemed quite fair. After a moment of contemplation, Lu Feng spoke again. "Respected shopkeeper, I find myself short on spirit stones. Might it be possible to substitute with other items?" The shopkeeper's expression shifted slightly, yet he acquiesced. "Very well, but any substitute must be a hard currency." Seeing this, Lu Feng promptly produced a top-grade chi gathering pill and presented it. "How about this, esteemed shopkeeper?" The middle-aged man examined it closely, his eyes widening in surprise. "This is a top-grade chi gathering pill. Impressive discernment, my friend. Might this item serve as a substitute for spirit stones?" "Indeed, it certainly can. Pray tell, how many of these pills do you possess?" The inquiry prompted Lu Feng to pose another question instead. "Respected shopkeeper, how many low-grade spirit stones would one of these top-grade chi gathering pills equate to?" Lu Feng had yet to encounter anyone selling such high-grade pills publicly. They typically circulated within major sects or were gifted to juniors. At that moment, the shopkeeper extended 2 fingers, stating, "For you, young sir, one top-grade chi gathering pill shall be valued at 20 low-grade spirit stones." Lu Feng was momentarily taken aback. He had not anticipated the high price of the top-grade chi gathering pill, especially considering that a low-grade chi gathering pill was merely valued at 2 low-grade spirit stones. This represented a 10-fold increase in price. However, judging by the shopkeeper's demeanor, it seemed this price was still on the lower end. However, Lu Feng did not dwell on the price and nodded, saying, "All right." With that, he produced 10 high-grade chi gathering pills and 400 low-grade spirit stones, handing them over. The shopkeeper's face lit up with delight upon receiving the 10 high-grade chi gathering pills. "Haha, splendid. From this moment forth, this jade spirit sword belongs to you." Lu Feng took the spirit sword and examined it closely. He discovered that not only was the craftsmanship exquisite, but the blade was also adorned with 12 spiritual patterns. Although he was not well versed in artifact forging, he understood that typically only top-tier spiritual weapons bore 12 patterns. A high-grade spirit sword should possess only 9. This clearly indicated that the middle-aged shopkeeper had not deceived him. With the transaction concluded, Lu Feng promptly stored the jade long sword in his system space and departed from the shop. As he exited, the middle-aged shopkeeper was still reveling in the acquisition of the 10 high-grade chi gathering pills, entirely oblivious to Lu Feng's departure. I should purchase some talismans next," Lu Feng mused before making his way to another shop. Chapter 22. The explosive power comparable to the pinnacle of Foundation establishment. Upon leaving the artifact shop, Lu Feng noticed the 2 individuals who had been following him earlier. Not wishing to engage them, he swiftly proceeded to the talisman store. Inside, he acquired 10 wind walking talismans, 10 golden light talismans, and 10 water avoidance talismans. All 3 types of talismans were low-grade first-tier charms, costing him a total of 70 low-grade spirit stones for the 30 talismans. With the aid of these 3 talismans, both his mobility and defensive capabilities would see significant enhancement. Furthermore, the water avoidance talisman would allow him to maneuver freely underwater, providing an escape route in the face of danger. After procuring the necessary items, Lu Feng visited a technique shop, where he sold the previously acquired high-grade yellow Class 5 Thunder technique for 300 low-grade spirit stones. Following the transaction, Lu Feng returned directly to the inn, and the two individuals who had been tailing him departed as soon as he entered. In the cultivation market, individuals typically refrained from engaging in combat, as a formidable Foundation establishment cultivator presided over the area. Anyone daring to act recklessly would face repercussions from this powerful figure. Thus, under normal circumstances, cultivators would not resort to violence in this marketplace unless absolutely necessary. Back in his room, Lu Feng resumed consuming the high-grade qi-gathering pills and dedicated himself to his cultivation. At this moment, the time had reached 3/4 past the afternoon hour of Shun, and he planned to leave the market by nightfall, continuing his journey towards the Lfong Immortal City. In comparison to the cultivation market, Lfong Immortal City was exponentially larger, boasting a multitude of shops. Most significantly, the city was built upon a spiritual vein, allowing those with sufficient spirit stones to rent cultivation sites equipped with gathering spirit arrays, dramatically accelerating their training speed. Moreover, various auctions frequently took place within the city, presenting opportunities to acquire rare treasures and techniques. Lu Feng's journey to Lfong Immortal City was not solely for the secret realm scheduled for months later. He also sought to engage in rigorous cultivation within the city. After acquiring the explosive furnace system, he no longer worried about resource scarcity. As long as he remained cautious and took his time to develop, success was assured. Furthermore, he intended to leave the marketplace tonight to experiment with the explosive furnace in the wilderness. 3 hours later, the sky outside had completely darkened. Lu Feng ceased his cultivation and opened the window to observe the surroundings. Noticing everything was normal, he affixed a wind talisman to his leg. It was time to depart. With that, Lu Feng leapt forward, sprinting eastward away from the marketplace. Under the cloak of night, his figure transformed into a fleeting shadow, swiftly traversing the main road. After a quarter of an hour, he gradually came to a halt. Finally, he had left the marketplace behind. Then, Lu Feng concealed himself in a nearby thicket, carefully observing the road for any signs of pursuit. After a quarter of an hour of vigilance without detecting anyone following him, he returned to the road. The adage "caution ensures longevity" resonated with him, and Lu Feng approached every endeavor with heightened prudence. Taking advantage of the night, he sprinted for another hour, his speed having multiplied several times due to the wind talisman. At this pace, it would take only 2 or 3 days to reach the Lfong Immortal City. Suddenly, a dilapidated house appeared ahead. Lu Feng decided to rest there for a while, planning to act once daylight broke. Arriving at the door of the crumbling abode, he paused, and after a thorough inspection, he found no one inside. He then pushed open the weathered door and stepped in. Upon entering, Lu Feng kindled a fire and retrieved a small, battered furnace from his system space. Here, he believed the explosive furnace would go unnoticed. Previously, he had used only a small amount of spiritual energy during his last experiment, resulting in a relatively minor explosion. This time, he resolved to channel all his spiritual energy into the furnace to gauge its true power. With determination, Lu Feng gathered the materials for a qi-gathering pill and placed them into the furnace. After a period of refinement, all the materials transformed into a liquid essence. Observing this, a glimmer of anticipation sparkled in Lu Feng's eyes. Let us see how powerful this explosion will be. With that, he poured all the spiritual energy from his dantian into the furnace. To protect himself from potential harm, he applied a golden light talisman before swiftly exiting the dilapidated house, stopping only when he was 100 meters away from the furnace. This distance was the limit of his control over spiritual energy. Had he reached the late stage of qi refinement, he could have extended it by several hundred meters. Alas, he was merely at the 4th level of qi refinement. With everything prepared, Lu Feng raised his right hand and gestured with a spell. Instantly, the spiritual energy within the small furnace enveloped the liquid essence. Then, with a focused thought, he began to command the immense spiritual energy within the furnace to compress the liquid essence. Due to the complete infusion of his spiritual energy this time, the compression occurred with extraordinary efficiency. In an instant, the liquid essence was pressed to its utmost limit. In the next moment, a thunderous explosion suddenly erupted from the dilapidated house. Boom! A small mushroom cloud instantaneously rose from the ruins, tearing off the roof and walls in an instant. The shockwave generated by the explosion quickly reached Lu Feng. Oh no! The sheer terror of the blast caused him to exclaim in astonishment. As the shockwave approached, his golden light talisman flared to life, enveloping him in protection. Yet, the formidable force still hurled him backward. He felt as if he were but a leaf, tossed through the air. With a cry of distress, Lu Feng landed heavily on the ground, his protective golden shield shattering with a crack. Cough, cough. This power is absolutely outrageous, he exclaimed, rubbing his backside. The intensity of this explosion was undoubtedly the most terrifying he had ever encountered. While it might not rival the strikes of a Golden Core practitioner, it could certainly be likened to the might of a peak foundation establishment expert. Had he not applied the Golden Light Talisman in advance and maintained a distance of 100 meters, he would likely be gravely injured by now. After easing his discomfort, Lu Feng hurried towards the remnants of the house, eager to assess the condition of his small alchemical furnace. If it were damaged, he would need to procure a new one. Upon approaching, however, he found that the house had been utterly obliterated, leaving only a massive pit in the ground. Yet, within this pit lay his small furnace, miraculously intact. Astounded, Lu Feng rushed to inspect the furnace. What on earth is this made of? It withstood such a tremendous explosion without a scratch. Chapter 23. Arrival at Lfong, Immortal City. The system had bestowed upon him a small furnace that not only possessed unique flames, but also proved indestructible. This indicated that the system's novice gift pack was indeed quite valuable. After observing the furnace for a while and detecting no anomalies, he directed a thread of spiritual energy into it. Instantly, a hole on the right side of the furnace slowly opened, and 10 dark pills soared out. As Lu Feng received the useless pills, he recalled the system's notification. Ding! You have triggered a 10-fold return reward for your explosion while refining Qi gathering pills. Please select your reward. Reward 1. 100 lower grade Qi gathering pills. Reward 2. 30 upper grade Qi gathering pills. Reward 3. 15 supreme grade Qi gathering pills. Without a moment's hesitation, Lu Feng opted for reward 3. Ding! Congratulations! You have received 15 supreme grade Qi gathering pills, which have been stored in the system space. Please retrieve them at your convenience. Upon receiving his reward, Lu Feng promptly stored the small furnace in the system space and pondered. The sound of that explosion was far too loud. I cannot linger here any longer. I must leave swiftly. With that, he turned and sprinted eastward. Just moments after his departure, 2 Foundation establishment experts soared overhead on their swords. After a thorough observation, the 2 individuals exchanged glances, and one of them, a middle-aged man clad in a robe, spoke up. Aside from the explosion marks here, there are no signs of a struggle elsewhere. In my estimation, a peak Foundation establishment expert must have been testing the potency of their spells, resulting in the sounds we heard. Upon hearing this, the other Foundation establishment cultivator nodded in silent agreement. Your conjecture aligns closely with my own, my dear colleague. However, the true intentions of this peak Foundation establishment expert remain elusive. Alas, I am uncertain about this matter. We should report our findings to the sect. Having concluded their discussion, the 2 took to the skies on their swords, heading towards the Yunxiao sect. Meanwhile, Lu Feng was still racing towards the direction of the Lfong Immortal City. Bolstered by the Windwalking Talisman, his speed was remarkably swift, at least twice that of an ordinary horse, and he felt no strain as he ran. This talisman could sustain its effects for 12 hours, with the sole drawback being that once activated, it could not be stopped. Tearing the talisman would render it useless. To avoid wasting the talisman's efficacy, Lu Feng continued his relentless sprint for an entire day and night. By the time the effects of the talisman waned, he found himself quite close to the Lfong Immortal City. According to his recollection, he needed only half a day to reach his destination. Never mind. I shall persevere for another half day. Once I arrive at the Lfong Immortal City, I can finally rest, he resolved, pulling out another Windwalking Talisman and affixing it to his leg before resuming his vigorous run towards the east. Thus, Lu Feng sprinted through the night, and as dawn broke, he could finally see the city gates of the Immortal City in the distance. At last, I am nearly there. Once he entered the Lfong Immortal City, he would no longer have to worry about retaliation from the Yunxiao sect, for this city was an affiliated settlement of the Haoshuan sect. The Haoshuan sect was a premier sect in the southern region, and the relations between them and the Yunxiao sect were notoriously strained. Although both belonged to the righteous path, frequent frictions occurred between the 2 sections. Lu Feng, having been a direct disciple of the Yunxiao sect, was well aware of this. Before long, Lu Feng arrived at the city gates. As he stepped within the confines of the city, he was enveloped by a restrictive formation. This formation was a void restriction array, preventing all cultivators from flying within the city unless their power reached the nascent soul stage, which allowed them to disregard the constraints of the array. However, encountering a nascent soul elder was no simple matter. Only a few prominent figures within leading sects possessed such profound cultivation. As Lu Feng approached the gates, he noticed a considerable number of cultivators entering and exiting, some of whom were ordinary citizens. Yet, to enter the city, one had to pay a toll. Lu Feng produced 2 low-grade spirit stones and handed them to the gatekeeper before striding confidently into the city. Upon entering, Lu Feng immediately felt a marked increase in the density of spiritual energy compared to the wilderness. Moments later, he arrived at the entrance of an establishment called the Yunlai Inn, observing a bustling crowd within. Consequently, he followed suit and entered. As soon as he stepped inside, a young attendant approached him, inquiring, "Esteemed guest, will you be dining or seeking accommodation?" Lu Feng cast a glance at the other person and inquired, "May I ask how many spirit stones are required for a night's lodging?" Previously, he had visited this place with his master, Chen Hai, but at that time, all expenses in the city were managed by Chen Hai, leaving Lu Feng unaware of the local prices. The establishment offers 4 categories of rooms: heaven, earth, profound, and yellow, each with significant price differences. For instance, a yellow room is merely 2 low-grade spirit stones per night, whereas a profound room demands 10 low-grade spirit stones, the attendant explained. Lu Feng pondered for a moment. The inn he had stayed at in the marketplace charged only 1 low-grade spirit stone per night, indicating that the prices in this celestial city were indeed considerably higher. "Might you escort me to view a yellow room?" Lu Feng continued his inquiry. "Of course. Please follow me," the attendant replied. They ascended to the 2nd floor, where all the rooms were designated as yellow. Upon entering a room, Lu Feng discovered it to be approximately 10 square meters, containing only a bedroom and a table, devoid of any other furnishings. Noticing this, Lu Feng turned to the attendant and requested, "Could you please show me a profound room?" "Certainly, no problem." The attendant led Lu Feng to the 3rd floor, which, although containing fewer rooms, featured each with a living room, bedroom, and an additional chamber. The furnishings and amenities were notably superior to those in the yellow rooms. Currently, Lu Feng possessed 382 low-grade spirit stones, making it feasible for him to stay in a profound room. "Then I shall take 1 profound room. And here is the deposit for a week," he stated, producing 70 low-grade spirit stones to hand over. The attendant accepted the spirit stones and promptly presented him with a token. "Esteemed guest, this is your room token. All profound rooms are equipped with defensive formations, which you may activate with this token." "Understood," Lu Feng acknowledged. "Additionally, should you require anything, please ring the bell by the bedside, and we shall be informed." Nodding, Lu Feng utilized the token to enter his room. After 2 days of arduous travel, he was eager for a restorative sleep. Upon entering the room, he quickly inspected the surroundings, secured the doors and windows, and lay down, swiftly drifting into a deep slumber. Lu Feng slept soundly for a full day and night. When he finally awoke, it was already the morning of the 3rd day. Sitting on the edge of his bed, he assessed his physical condition. The fatigue has dissipated, and my body has nearly fully recovered. Next, he resolved to focus on his cultivation, beginning with the consumption of over 100 high-grade qi gathering pills in his possession. Furthermore, he had 19 sets of materials for qi gathering pills, ensuring he was not lacking in resources for cultivation at this time. Stealing his resolve, Lu Feng quickly refreshed himself and retrieved a high-grade qi gathering pill from his system space, swallowing it whole. With the aid of the pill, he soon entered a focused state of cultivation. Chapter 24. Access to the Misty Spirit Realm unlocked. As his cultivation progressed, a week passed swiftly. So engrossed was Lu Feng in his practice that he lost track of time. Until the moment when his door was gently knocked upon, he ceased his cultivation. "Knock, knock. Esteemed guest, your room is due for checkout today. Would you like to extend your stay?" Upon hearing the voice of the attendant outside, Lu Feng slowly rose to open the door. "Please extend my stay for another 10 days, he requested, handing over 100 low-grade spirit stones. "Very well. I shall not disturb your rest any further." After the attendant departed, Lu Feng examined the state of his dantian. He observed that the spirit energy, which had previously filled only 1/5 of his dantian, was now nearing completion. According to Lu Feng's estimations, with the refinement of just a dozen or so top-grade qi gathering pills, he would be able to break through to the 5th layer of qi refinement. However, he currently possessed only 38 top-grade qi gathering pills. "First, I shall cultivate to the 5th layer of qi refinement, and then I will detonate the materials for the qi gathering pills that I purchased earlier," he resolved, resuming his practice. After a day of focused cultivation, the spirit energy in his dantian finally reached its maximum capacity. As new energy surged in, his entire dantian began to tremble violently. As the shaking intensified, half an hour passed. In that instant, the dantian, which had previously been no larger than half a thumb's width, suddenly expanded significantly. Feeling the transformation within his dantian, Lu Feng's heart swelled with joy. At that moment, his cultivation level had ascended once more, reaching the 5th layer of qi refinement. "At last, I have broken through to the 5th layer." Lu Feng opened his eyes, rose, and moved to the inner chamber. where he retrieved his modest alchemical furnace and the materials for the chi-gathering pills, initiating the process of refining. With his cultivation now elevated to a new minor realm, his speed and frequency of pill-making increased. After 2 days of alchemical endeavors, he had completely exhausted 19 batches of materials. Among these, he successfully refined 15 top-grade chi-gathering pills and 4 low-grade ones. Consequently, his stock of top-grade chi-gathering pills had risen to 245, while the number of low-grade pills reached an impressive 400. Once he sold these pills, he could exchange them for several hundred low-grade spirit stones. After securing his modest furnace and the pills, Lu Feng resolved to venture out and inquire about the prices of chi-gathering pills in the Immortal City, while also seeking suitable items for himself. Departing from the Yunlai Inn, he began to stroll through the Immortal City. After some investigation, Lu Feng discovered that the prices of pills in this city were somewhat higher than in the market. For instance, low-grade chi-gathering pills sold for 2 low-grade spirit stones each in the market, whereas in the Immortal City, they were priced at 3. It was not only the chi-gathering pills. Other elixirs, treasures, and talismans were also more expensive than those in the market. It seemed that the cost of living in the Immortal City was indeed quite different. Having grasped the pricing information, Lu Feng entered a shop called the Lanyan Pill Pavilion, intending to sell his 400 low-grade chi-gathering pills. He chose this establishment due to its status as the largest in the district. Upon entering, a young woman dressed elegantly and possessing a sweet demeanor approached him. "Good afternoon, esteemed guest. May I inquire whether you seek to purchase pills or sell spirit herbs?" Lu Feng cast a glance at the woman and discerned that she possessed a cultivation level of the 4th stage of chi refinement. While this level was relatively commendable within the confines of the cultivation market, it was rather commonplace in the Immortal City. Moreover, the woman was not only sweet in appearance but also possessed a curvaceous figure. Lu Feng gradually withdrew his gaze and produced a low-grade chi-gathering pill, inquiring, "Does your esteemed establishment purchase such elixirs?" The young woman glanced at the pill in Lu Feng's hand and promptly made a judgment, responding, "Esteemed guest, our shop indeed acquires low-grade chi-gathering pills. The price is 1.5 low-grade spirit stones per pill. May I inquire how many you wish to sell?" Lu Feng felt a stir of intrigue. It seemed that the shops in the Immortal City were markedly different, as even a mere shop assistant could instantly recognize the quality of the elixir in his possession. However, the purchasing price was still aligned with that of the market, which felt somewhat exploitative. Observing this, Lu Feng handed over a cloth bag, stating, "I have 400 here, please count them." The young woman's eyes brightened as she accepted the bag to inspect its contents. Upon confirming the quantity, she smiled and said, "Esteemed guest, I have counted your elixirs. Here are 600 low-grade spirit stones for you to verify." Lu Feng glanced at the stones and, knowing the quantity was accurate, nodded in affirmation, "Yes. The quantity is correct. Friend, I also wish to purchase materials for 20 chi-gathering pills. How many spirit stones would that cost?" Realizing that Lu Feng not only sold a substantial number of chi-gathering pills, but also sought to buy alchemical materials, the young woman quickly understood his status. The materials for the chi-gathering pill were priced at 12 low-grade spirit stones per portion, but if you possess a Dan Alliance Alchemist credential, our shop can offer a 10% discount. Dan Alliance Alchemist credential? Lu Feng shook his head in resignation. "Unfortunately, I do not possess such a thing. Let us proceed with the standard price." He had certainly heard of the Dan Alliance, as his master, Chen Hai, was an honorary elder within it. It was unexpected to learn that possessing a credential could afford one a discount. It seemed that having connections was indeed more advantageous than lacking them, regardless of the location. As the transaction concluded and Lu Feng prepared to depart, 2 mid-stage chi refinement cultivators entered the shop, engaged in conversation. "Brother Wang, have you heard? The Lianling Secret Realm is set to open in 2 months. Huh, many are aware of that, and I have also heard that this time, the Haoshuan sect permits everyone to enter." "Oh, the Haoshuan sect truly stated that?" "Of course. However, to enter the Lianling Secret Realm, one must pay an entrance fee of 1,000 low-grade spirit stones." "What? An entrance fee of 1,000 low-grade spirit stones? Why don't they just rob it?" Upon hearing this, the other swiftly covered his mouth, hushing, "Shill, how can you speak so recklessly?" "Cough, cough, I misspoke, my apologies." With the two ceasing their idle chatter, a glimmer of insight flashed in Lu Feng's eyes as he exited the Lianyun Dan Pavilion. It turned out that the secret realm was called the Lianling Secret Realm, and it was under the jurisdiction of the Haoshuan sect. But why would this sect choose to open its doors to the public? Was it merely for the sake of each individual's 1,000 low-grade spirit stones? As Lu Feng strolled down the street, he pondered the news he had just received. Based on his judgment, the Haoshuan sect was not to be underestimated. Their willingness to relax the entry qualifications to the secret realm could imply 2 possibilities. Either the treasures within had lost their value, or there were dangers lurking inside. prompting the Haoxian sect to allow outsiders to venture in first as test subjects. Regardless of the circumstances, he felt compelled to enter. Chapter 25. Acquiring the Transformative Mask. After departing from the Lanyundan Pavilion, Lu Feng did not hurry back to the inn, but instead continued to wander the streets. Though he had obtained the Jade Sword and 3 talismans, he felt it was still insufficient. Before entering the secret realm, he needed to procure some protective artifacts and life-preserving items. While contemplating what treasures to acquire, Lu Feng noticed a gathering of people further down the street. Curiosity piqued. He approached the scene and discovered a young girl setting up a stall. The crowd was drawn to her predicament, as the city guards were demanding a stall fee, and the girl appeared unable to pay with spirit stones. You can't set up here without spirit stones. Pack up your stall quickly, or I will confiscate all your goods. The guard admonished with a disdainful expression. The girl, dressed in coarse linen garments and seemingly no older than 12 or 13, displayed a look of panic upon hearing the threat. Please, sir, if I sell a few items, I promise I will pay the stall fee immediately. Just let me stay a little longer. Enough chatter. Without the stall fee, not even the king himself could sell goods in this city. You have 3 breaths time to clear out, or I shall not be so courteous. The guard's fierce demeanor left the girl on the verge of tears. Ultimately, she complied, dismantling her stall while casting a forlorn glance at the guard. What are you staring at? If I catch you selling in the city again, you can forget about these trinkets. With that, the guard departed, and the onlookers dispersed, leaving the girl standing alone, uncertain of what to do next. At that moment, a voice broke the silence. Young lady, may I see what you were selling? She looked up to find a tall, handsome young man before her. It was none other than Lu Feng. Having noticed an item he desired at her stall during the earlier confrontation, he had approached her with a query. The girl shook her head in response. I'm sorry, kind sir, but I cannot pay the stall fee. And the guard won't allow me to sell here. Lu Feng furrowed his brow at her naive response. Ahem, how about this? We can leave the city together. And once we are outside, you can sell to me there. Upon hearing his suggestion, the girl initially brightened, only to quickly adopt a wary expression. Are you planning to take my belongings? The girl clutched her package tightly, and Lu Feng was visibly exasperated. How can you sell me your items then? After pondering for a moment, the girl proposed, Big brother, how about this? You pay the stall fee first, and then I will deduct that amount from what you buy from me. Does that sound agreeable? Lu Feng, somewhat speechless, nodded in acquiescence. All right then. How much is the stall fee? The girl extended 5 fingers, indicating that the fee was merely 5 low-grade spirit stones. Lu Feng nodded, producing the 5 stones and handing them over. You can go pay it yourself. Upon realizing that Lu Feng was sincere, the girl beamed with joy. Thank you, big brother. Now I can sell my items. She took the spirit stones and dashed to a nearby guard to settle the stall fee. Moments later, she returned to Lu Feng and opened her package, inquiring, Handsome big brother, what do you need? I can sell it to you at a discount. Observing the innocent girl, Lu Feng sighed. Did you have a beast skin mask on your stall earlier? The girl immediately comprehended Lu Feng's interest and unfolded her package, retrieving the beast skin mask. Is this what you meant, handsome big brother? Lu Feng nodded and examined the mask closely. If he was not mistaken, this mask was likely a transformation mask. Crafted from the fur of a shape-shifting fox, its purpose was to allow the wearer to alter their appearance at will, even masking at this moment. Lu Feng had transformed into a middle-aged man, his face adorned with fine stubble. He reached out to touch his new visage, revealing a faint smile. Now, it seemed no one would recognize me. Subsequently, Lu Feng wandered around the city for a while, but found nothing of interest. Thus, he decided to return to the inn to continue his cultivation. Just then, 3 familiar figures appeared on the street ahead. Upon recognizing them, Lu Feng's gaze instantly turned cold. Indeed, these 3 were none other than Zhang and his accomplices, who had previously attacked him at the Xiandan building. Although he yearned to avenge himself, his strength was insufficient, and they were still within the bounds of the Immortal City. Should he dare to act, he would face the combined assault of Zhang and the city guards. Suppressing his murderous intent, Lu Feng averted his eyes and walked past the trio. At that moment, Luo Yueling suddenly sensed something and inquired, Senior brothers, did you feel that the person who just passed by seemed somewhat familiar? Zhang and Wang Hui glanced back, finding no recognizable figure, and replied, Junior sister, could it be you mistook someone? We are among the first disciples of our sect to arrive in the Lfong Immortal City. How could there be someone familiar here? Luo Yueling frowned slightly and shrugged, saying, perhaps I was mistaken. Chapter 26. Earth-Level Intermediate Technique. Xian Feng Sword Technique. After the 3 had walked away, Lu Feng turned to observe their departing figures. Zhang I will eventually repay that punch from the Xiandan building. Just you wait. With that, Lu Feng swiftly returned to the Yunlai Inn. The appearance of these 3 indicated that the Yunxiao sect would soon send others. He was uncertain who would be dispatched this time. Moreover, He was not well acquainted with the Longling secret realm, aside from knowing that the entry fee required 1,000 inferior spirit stones. He was in the dark about other details. He resolved to seek information about the secret realm at the next opportunity. For now, his primary objective remained to restore his cultivation to the 8th level of Qi refinement. Upon returning to his room, Lu Feng immediately swallowed a top-tier Qi gathering pill and began to meditate and cultivate. As he delved into his practice, 10 days swiftly elapsed. When the innkeeper came to collect the lodging fee, Lu Feng handed over 300 inferior spirit stones, reserving a month's stay. The innkeeper, noticing Lu Feng's generosity, improved his service demeanor. After settling the bill, Lu Feng returned to his room to focus intently on his cultivation. However, as his cultivation level progressed, the resources required for further breakthroughs increased exponentially. Lu Feng estimated that to reach the 6th level of Qi refinement, he would need at least 400 top-tier Qi gathering pills. 3 more days passed quickly, and Lu Feng finally exhausted his supply of top-tier Qi gathering pills. Oh, I can now refine 20 top-tier Qi gathering pills in a single day. The consumption of resources is indeed swift, Lu Feng remarked as he slowly rose, proceeding to the side room to retrieve his small broken furnace, preparing to concoct more Qi gathering pills. After a period of diligent practice, Lu Feng finally realized the extensive resources required for cultivation. During his time at the Yunxiao sect, all cultivation resources were provided by the sect and Shanghai, so he had not felt the burden of resource consumption. Now, relying solely on himself, he grasped the significance of resources. Were it not for the assistance of the explosion furnace system, his aspirations for advancement would be utterly hopeless. Putting aside such thoughts, he resolved to refine the 20 batches of Qi gathering Dan materials first. Consequently, Lu Feng commenced his explosive refining, and after 2 days of persistent effort amidst the resounding thuds of the small furnace, he successfully completed the refinement of all 20 batches. Among them, he chose to produce 15 batches of top-grade Qi gathering Dan, while the remaining 5 were of lower grade. His decision to refrain from selling the superior grade Dan was to avoid drawing attention. After all, he was currently only at the 5th layer of Qi refinement. Attracting the notice of other cultivators would undoubtedly place him in jeopardy. With the elixirs in hand, he resumed his cultivation. Time passed swiftly, and another week had gone by. At this moment, the spiritual energy within Lu Feng's dantian once again reached a state of perfection. As new waves of spiritual energy surged into his dantian, it began to tremble vigorously. After a bout of intense agitation, his dantian expanded once more. From this point onward, his cultivation level finally ascended to the 6th layer of Qi refinement. Calming his mind, Lu Feng stabilized the spiritual energy within his dantian and mused to himself that with one more breakthrough, he could return to the late stage of Qi refinement, at which point he would be able to wield the Xianfeng sword technique. During his decade of training at the Yunxiao sect, aside from the Qingmu burning spirit technique, he had also learned several formidable spells. Among them, the Lihua Zhenju was particularly noteworthy, primarily utilized for alchemical purposes. However, the true offensive spell was the Xianfeng sword technique, a mid-tier earth rank spell personally taught to him by Chen Hai. This sword technique emphasizes the exquisite and swift execution of strikes. Although the Xianfeng sword technique is exceedingly powerful, it demands a high level of proficiency, only being usable at the late stage of Qi refinement. Lu Feng had previously employed this skill during the sect's grand competition, where only 2 exceptionally skilled disciples managed to counter it. No other disciples could withstand its might. Reflecting on this, Lu Feng gathered his thoughts and retrieved the previously purchased jade green long sword from his system space. This first-tier upper-grade spirit sword had not yet undergone the ritual of refinement since its purchase, and with time to spare, it was the perfect opportunity to conduct the ritual. Resolutely, he drew the long sword and lightly traced his finger along its surface, allowing a drop of blood to fall upon the blade. In the next moment, Lu Feng began to perform the ritualistic hand seals, watching as the drop of blood gradually merged into the sword. After a day and night of refinement, the jade green long sword finally became his exclusive magical artifact. Thus, once he achieved another breakthrough in his cultivation, he would be able to wield this sword to execute the Xianfeng sword technique. With that in mind, he acknowledged the necessity to continue his cultivation. With these thoughts, Lu Feng returned to his bed and resumed his meditative practice. After 10 days of dedicated cultivation, he found that his supply of exquisite Qi gathering pills had been exhausted once more. Yet, his spiritual energy within the dantian had barely reached half of its potential. At this rate of advancement, it would require approximately 200 to 300 more exquisite Qi gathering pills to transcend to the 7th layer of Qi refinement. Without these pills, Lu Feng discovered that his cultivation speed had plummeted by dozens of times. If he were to rely solely on absorbing the spiritual energy from the air, Achieving even a minor breakthrough could take him 1 or 2 years, and this is without considering any bottlenecks. Typically, cultivators encounter various obstacles when attempting to break through to a minor realm, which would further exacerbate the difficulty of the endeavor. Previously, Lu Feng had been hindered by 2 significant bottlenecks that prevented him from advancing to the foundation establishment stage: physical deficiencies and an insufficient mindset. In fact, during his time at the Yunxiao sect, he had once consumed a foundation establishment pill in an attempt to break through. Unfortunately, that attempt ended in failure, leaving a crack in his mental state. A cultivator has only 2 opportunities in a lifetime to break through to the foundation establishment stage. Lu Feng's reluctance to advance stemmed from a fear of failing a second time, which would irrevocably sever his path in cultivation. Having lived 2 lives, he cherished the chance to cultivate and did not wish to remain in the qi refinement stage for eternity. Moreover, a second failure would lead to his complete abandonment by both the sect and Shanghai. This was the true reason behind his decade-long stagnation at the foundation establishment stage. Regrettably, despite his fears, he ultimately found himself abandoned by both the sect and Shanghai. Reflecting on his past experiences, Lu Feng let out a long sigh. He decided to sell the inferior qi gathering pills in his possession first. Chapter 27. The Invitation from Lanyun Pill Pavilion. After spending over 20 days in his room in cultivation, Lu Feng had restored his cultivation level to the 6th layer of qi refinement. With only a few exquisite qi gathering pills left in his possession, it was time for him to venture outside. Upon leaving the Yunlai Inn, he donned a transformative mask, instantly altering his appearance to that of a middle-aged man, running his fingers along the stubble on his cheek. Lu Feng smiled slightly before making his way towards the Lanyun Pill Pavilion. His intention was to sell the inferior qi gathering pills he had and subsequently purchase more alchemical materials. Moments later, upon entering the Lanyun Pill Pavilion, he was greeted by the same young woman who had attended to him previously. However, due to his altered visage, she did not recognize him. After a series of transactions, he sold all 500 inferior spirit stones to the Lanyun Pill Pavilion and procured materials for 50 qi gathering pills. Just as he was about to leave, the young female attendant spoke up. "Esteemed guest, our establishment will be hosting a small auction tonight. Might you be interested in attending?" Lu Feng raised an eyebrow and replied slowly, "An auction? Could you enlighten me about the treasures that will be auctioned?" The young attendant shook her head, saying, "I am not privy to the specifics of the treasures, but I have heard that the auction will include materials for crafting foundation establishment pills." The young female clerk, observing Lu Feng's transactions of both selling elixirs and purchasing materials for the crafting of gathering qi pills, could easily deduce that he was undoubtedly an alchemist. Upon hearing the news of the foundation establishment pill, a wave of excitement surged within Lu Feng. This pill, classified as a second-tier elixir, is known to many alchemists. However, the materials required for its creation are exceedingly difficult to procure. Typically, these materials are controlled by major sects and cultivator families, and they seldom circulate in the marketplace. With his possession of the alchemical furnace system, Lu Feng could yield high-quality pills as long as he had the necessary materials. If he could acquire the ingredients for the foundation establishment pill, he could similarly produce a superior grade of this elixir. The foundation establishment pill he had previously consumed was of inferior quality, only enhancing his success rate for foundation establishment by approximately 30%. Coupled with his own breakthrough chances of about 10 to 20%, his overall probability of success was around 50%. Although this percentage was not insignificant, many still faltered at this critical juncture. However, possessing a top-tier foundation establishment pill would undoubtedly enhance his success rate significantly. Based on his calculations, such a pill could potentially elevate his success probability to over 60%. In light of this, attending the auction hosted by the Lanyun Pill Pavilion became imperative. Having come to this conclusion, Lu Feng promptly nodded and declared, "Very well, I shall participate in your esteemed auction." The clerk smiled slightly at his affirmation, producing a jade token and handing it to him. "The auction will commence tonight at the Hour of the Pig, on the 3rd floor of our establishment. You may present this token for entry." Lu Feng accepted the token with a respectful gesture, replying, "I am grateful for your kind invitation. Do not mention it. It is merely a task assigned to us by the owner," she replied with a light chuckle. Lu Feng nodded in acknowledgement before turning to leave the Lanyun Pill Pavilion. Once outside, he glanced at the time, realizing it was already afternoon. I must gather more spirit stones to prepare for tonight's auction. However, having sold out of inferior gathering qi pills, his only option to acquire a substantial amount of spirit stones was to sell higher-grade pills. After a moment of contemplation, he resolved to part with the 20 superior gathering qi pills in his possession. Selling the top-tier gathering qi pills had never crossed his mind, as they attract far too much attention and could easily lead to dire consequences. Yet, 20 superior gathering qi pills would not fetch a significant sum of spirit stones. Based on his knowledge of the materials needed for the foundation establishment pill, he estimated that he would require at least 1,000 inferior spirit stones to have a chance at purchasing them. Very well. I shall return and refine a few more batches of pills, then sell them for spirit stones, he concluded. With that, Lu Feng quickly returned to the inn and commenced his refining plans. After 4 rounds of alchemical refinement, night had fallen. He had chosen to produce superior gathering chi pills in all 4 instances. At this moment, he possessed a total of 120 superior gathering chi pills, which, at a valuation of 40 inferior spirit stones per pill, amounted to 2,800 inferior spirit stones. Gazing at the elixir in his hand, Lu Feng was suddenly struck by an idea. He could directly exchange these exquisite chi gathering pills for spirit stones. He believed that the Lanyundan Pavilion would not refuse such a proposal. This course of action would likely go unnoticed by others, with perhaps only the pavilion harboring some suspicion towards him. Yes, that shall be my plan. With this thought, Lu Feng donned his ever-changing mask anew and departed from the inn. Upon his arrival at the Lanyundan Pavilion, he found the hall already bustling with numerous cultivators. Observing his surroundings, Lu Feng noted that the majority of the practitioners present were at the chi refinement stage, with not a single foundation establishment expert in sight. At that moment, a young female attendant noticed Lu Feng's entrance and greeted him with a smile. Esteemed guest, you have finally arrived. The auction will commence in half an hour. Lu Feng nodded slightly, inquiring, I presume everyone here is attending the auction? Your deduction is accurate, the attendant replied. They, like yourself, have been invited to the auction. Just as the two were conversing, a loud gong echoed through the establishment. Ding! A server announced, esteemed guests. The auction is about to begin. Please enter the venue and await further proceedings. Seeing this, the young attendant gestured for Lu Feng to proceed. I must attend to other guests, so I shall leave you for now. Lu Feng nodded in acknowledgement and ascended to the 3rd floor. Upon reaching it, he discovered a circular auction stage had been meticulously arranged. Surrounding the central podium were numerous seats, designated for the participants. On an upper level, 8 private rooms had been prepared exclusively for esteemed individuals of notable status and power. After surveying the auction venue's setup, Lu Feng casually selected a seat. At this moment, other invited guests also began to settle in on the 3rd floor. While waiting, Lu Feng observed that 6 of the 8 private rooms on the 4th floor had illuminated lights. Additionally, several hundred cultivators filled the hall below. When the 7th private room lit up, the auction finally commenced. A graceful woman clad in white elegantly made her way to the center of the stage, instantly inciting a murmur of excitement among the attendees. Lu Feng scrutinized her closely, yet could discern no indication of her cultivation level. The next moment, the woman spoke. Good evening, fellow cultivators. I am Li Yuelon, the manager of the Lanyundan Pavilion. Her introduction elicited expressions of astonishment from the crowd. At this juncture, a middle-aged male cultivator seated to Lu Feng's right exclaimed, So, she is Li Yuelon. I never imagined I would meet one of the 4 beauties of Xianfeng City. This trip has truly been worthwhile. His words resonated with others, as they realized they were in the presence of one of the legendary beauties. Not only is she one of the 4 beauties, but I also heard that Li Yuelon is a foundation establishment expert. Be cautious with your words, lest you offend elderly. Upon hearing the discussions of the crowd, Lu Feng felt a slight shock within. He had not anticipated that the woman in white possessed the cultivation of the foundation establishment stage. Indeed, one should not judge a person by their appearance. Amidst the conversation, Li Yuelon spoke again. First, on behalf of the Lanyundan Pavilion, I extend my gratitude to all fellow cultivators for attending this auction. I will be presiding over this event. Without further ado, let us commence the auction with our first item. As she concluded her words, 2 beautiful attendants carried a wooden box to the center of the venue. Li Yuelon gently opened the box, revealing a crystal-clear elixir within. With just a glance, Lu Feng recognized the elixir as a high-grade body refinement pill. Although it was not as precious as the top-tier body refinement pill he possessed, this high-grade pill was still quite rare in the market. It was fitting for the first item of the auction. At this moment, Li Yuelon surveyed the crowd and smiled. I believe some of you have already recognized this elixir. Indeed, it is the high-grade body refinement pill, with a total of 10 pieces, personally refined by our Master Wang. Upon her announcement, many cultivators in the audience displayed expressions of desire, particularly those with physical deficiencies who yearned for such a pill. Before long, one cultivator inquired, elderly, what is the starting bid for these 10 high-grade body refinement pills? Li Yuelon replied with a gentle smile, a good question, dear cultivator. The starting bid is 30 low-grade spirit stones per pill. However, they must be bid on as a complete set of 10, with each subsequent bid increasing by no less than 10 low-grade spirit stones. Let the bidding commence. As soon as her words fell, the previous inquirer immediately called out, 320 low-grade spirit stones. I shall take them. With this bid, other cultivators quickly followed suit. I bid 350 low-grade spirit stones. Another shouted. Huh, you think this meager sum can secure 10 high-grade body refinement pills? How naive. I bid 400 low-grade spirit stones. In an instant, the price began to escalate rapidly, soon reaching 600 low-grade spirit stones. As the price continued to climb, some cultivators displayed expressions of reluctance and despair. Although the high-grade body refinement pill was indeed precious, the current price had already exceeded the budget of most attendees. Just as the crowd began to feel that the price was exorbitant, a voice from the third box on the fourth floor resonated through the hall. I bid 650 low-grade spirit stones. I implore all fellow cultivators to give the Yunxiao sect some face. At this declaration, all eyes in the venue turned toward the source. The Yunxiao sect was a prestigious first-rate sect in the southern region, and it was evident that the voice belonged to them. However, upon hearing this voice, Lu Feng's expression darkened. If he had not misheard, the speaker was none other than his senior brother, Tang Ming. This individual had, like him, once been a disciple under Chen Hai. However, the opponent had already reached the foundation establishment stage 3 years ago and has now ascended to the second level of that realm. The reason Lu Feng is so familiar with Tang Ming's voice is that the latter frequently suppressed him and often spoke ill of him in front of Chen Hai. Although Lu Feng felt immense anger towards this, he found himself powerless against Tang Ming, who not only possessed superior cultivation but also hailed from a family of cultivators. In terms of both background and strength, Lu Feng was no match for Tang Ming. Undoubtedly, Tang Ming played a significant role in the abandonment he faced from his master, Chen Hai. Now, with Tang Ming appearing in the Lfong city, it indicated that he too had come to participate in this secret realm event. As Lu Feng reminisced about his encounters with Tang Ming, a voice suddenly emerged from box number 1. This is not the territory of your Yunxiao sect. Your influence holds no weight here. With those words, the crowd immediately turned their attention to the 2 boxes, realizing that the speaker from box No. 1 must possess a stature that rivaled the Yunxiao sect. Soon after, Tang Ming's voice resonated from box number 3. Oh, is that so? From your tone, I surmise that you must be from the Haoshuan sect. Since you know, why waste words? I bid 700 low-grade spirit stones. As the dialogue unfolded between the 2 boxes, the onlookers grasped the situation. The Haoshuan sect and the Yunxiao sect had a long history of conflict, and this city was a subordinate stronghold of the Haoshuan sect. Here, the Haoshuan sect could afford to disregard anyone's influence, especially that of the perpetually adversarial Yunxiao sect. After the Haoshuan sect made their bid, silence fell on the Yunxiao sect's side. At this moment, Tang Ming and his companions contemplated whether to raise their bid. After deliberation, the Yunxiao sect ultimately chose to withdraw. After all, this was the Haoshuan sect's domain, and competing in financial strength would be a most unwise decision. Moreover, the high-grade body refining pills were not particularly rare, and the Yunxiao sect had access to them as well. Seeing that the Yunxiao sect was no longer raising their bid, Li Yuelon scanned the room and inquired, "Ladies and gentlemen, is there anyone who wishes to place a higher bid? If not, I shall commence the countdown." With no further offers forthcoming, Li Yuelon proceeded to count down from 3, and ultimately, the item was successfully acquired by the Haoshuan sect. Subsequently, item after item was presented, but unfortunately, nothing piqued Lu Feng's interest. Just then, a new item was brought forth, a pair of boots adorned with silver threads and golden edges. Predominantly white in color and exquisitely designed, Li Yuelon waved her hand, and a surge of spiritual energy lifted the boots into the air as she proclaimed, "Esteemed friends, this item is known as the Cloud Treading Boots, a top-tier defensive treasure of the first rank. It not only enhances the wearer's speed, but can also withstand 3 full-force strikes from a late-stage Qi refinement practitioner." Gazing at the white boots suspended in the air, Lu Feng finally felt a flicker of interest. He was currently in need of a defensive treasure. Although the Cloud Treading Boots could only defend against attacks from late-stage Qi refinement practitioners, their speed-enhancing property was particularly appealing. However, Lu Feng refrained from immediately placing a bid, opting instead to observe how much spirit stones this item would ultimately attract. Li Yuelon levitated the boots with her spiritual power, showcasing them to the audience, and then proclaimed, "The starting price for this item is 400 low-grade spirit stones, with each subsequent bid requiring a minimum increase of 20 low-grade spirit stones. You may begin bidding." Chapter 29, the Grand Finale Auction Item, the 3 main ingredients of Foundation Establishment Pills. As soon as Li Yuelon finished speaking, someone immediately called out a price. "Senior Li, I bid 450 low-grade spirit stones." The crowd turned to see that the bidder was a middle-aged cultivator in the mid-stage of Qi refinement, clearly harboring a strong admiration for Li Yuelon. Otherwise, he would not have been the first to bid, nor would he have raised the price by 50 low-grade spirit stones. It's important to note that while the Cloud Treading Boots appeared commendable, their actual utility was somewhat limited. After all, they could only withstand 3 attacks from a cultivator at the late stage of chi refinement, which is rather insufficient in terms of defensive capability. However, Lu Feng was not interested in the defensive qualities of this treasure. He valued its ability to enhance mobility. After the middle-aged cultivator announced his bid, there was a prolonged silence from the others. Observing this, Li Yuelon gently inquired, "Are there any other friends bidding for the first-grade superior cloud-treading boots? If not," before she could finish her sentence, Lu Feng raised his hand and declared, "I bid 470 low-grade spirit stones." Li Yuelon immediately turned her gaze towards Lu Feng, smiling as she said, "This friend bids 470 low-grade spirit stones. Is there a higher bid?" The middle-aged cultivator, after some contemplation, realized that the cloud-treading boots held no practical significance for him. Rather than waste spirit stones on this artifact, he would be better off saving them for future purchases. Consequently, the atmosphere fell into silence, with no further bids forthcoming. Seeing this, Li Yuelon turned to Lu Feng and announced, "Since there are no further bids, this treasure belongs to this friend." A female attendant then presented the cloud-treading boots before Lu Feng. Unfortunately, Lu Feng only had a little over 300 low-grade spirit stones, insufficient to cover the price of the boots. Thus, Lu Feng stood and respectfully addressed the female attendant. "Esteemed friend, may I have a moment to speak with you?" The attendant furrowed her brow slightly at Lu Feng's demeanor, but eventually nodded. "Very well, please follow me." Lu Feng followed her swiftly out of the auction hall and into a private room on the 3rd floor. Without waiting for the attendant to speak, Lu Feng proactively stated, "Esteemed friend, I find myself lacking in spirit stones, and I was wondering if..." Upon hearing Lu Feng's words, the attendant's frown deepened. "Esteemed friend, are you not aware of our auction house's rules? Or do you believe that our Lanyundan pavilion is easy to deceive?" To clarify any misunderstandings, Lu Feng promptly produced a high-grade chi-gathering pill and explained, "You have misunderstood. Although I lack spirit stones, I can offer this pill in lieu of them. I wonder if your esteemed establishment would accept it?" Being a staff member of the Lanyundan pavilion, she was well-versed in elixirs. Yet she had seldom encountered this particular pill in Lu Feng's possession. After a careful observation, the female shop assistant suddenly widened her eyes in astonishment and exclaimed, "Friend, could it be that the pill in your hand is a superior chi-gathering pill? Hee, you have quite the discerning eye, my friend. This indeed is a superior chi-gathering pill. If your esteemed shop is willing, I could exchange this pill for spirit stones. Are you serious, my friend? Such superior chi-gathering pills are rarely found in the market. When they do appear, they are monopolized by major sects and powerful cultivation families." Lu Feng smiled faintly. "Of course I am serious, but I wonder how many inferior spirit stones this pill is worth?" The shop assistant pondered for a moment before replying, "Please wait here briefly. I will fetch Master Wang to assess the price. Is that acceptable?" "Yes, that will do." Before long, the shop assistant returned accompanied by a white-haired elder. Lu Feng merely glanced at the elder and discerned that he was a formidable cultivator at the foundation establishment stage. In the presence of such a powerful figure, his aura-concealing technique was entirely ineffective. The elder entered, casually sizing Lu Feng up before breaking into a knowing smile. At that moment, the shop assistant spoke, "Master Wang. This is the individual I mentioned to you earlier." The white-haired elder approached Lu Feng slowly and said, "I am Elder Wang, the chief alchemist of the Lanyun Alchemy Pavilion. I heard from Kai Ling that you wish to exchange a superior chi-gathering pill for spirit stones. Is that correct?" Lu Feng nodded and handed over a superior chi-gathering pill. "Elder Wang, this is my pill. Please have a look." Elder Wang took the pill and examined it, a flicker of surprise crossing his eyes. After a thorough inspection, he suddenly said, "Young friend, this pill is indeed a superior chi-gathering pill, and its quality is quite excellent. Based on market value, I can offer you 25 inferior spirit stones. What do you think?" Previously, when Lu Feng purchased the Jade Longsword, he had exchanged a superior chi-gathering pill for only 20 inferior spirit stones. "That sounds agreeable. Let us proceed with Elder Wang's offer." With that, Lu Feng produced 16 superior chi-gathering pills and 70 inferior spirit stones for the exchange. Upon seeing such a quantity of superior chi-gathering pills in Lu Feng's possession, Elder Wang's eyes gleamed with interest, and he asked with a smile, "You must also be an alchemist, young friend. May I inquire about your master?" Those capable of refining superior chi-gathering pills surely possessed alchemist skills of at least the 2nd tier. Even an ordinary 2nd tier alchemist would find it challenging to produce such high-quality pills. In Elder Wang's eyes, the superior chi-gathering pills in Lu Feng's possession were likely bestowed upon him by his master, hence his inquiry. Sensing this, Lu Feng replied with a smile, "Elder Wang, your insight is commendable. Indeed, I am an alchemist, but I regret I cannot disclose the name of my master. A month ago, Lu Feng did have a master. a formidable figure at the nascent soul stage. However, now he had no such mentor. The origin of these pills was a secret he kept to himself. He claimed to have a master merely to wield a semblance of authority, ensuring that the Lanyan Alchemy Pavilion would not act against him. Upon hearing Lu Feng's words, Elder Wang merely smiled, remarking that the young man's master must indeed be an extraordinary alchemist. Consequently, he decided not to impose any difficulties on him. Lu Feng then stated that he would proceed to the auction and would seek Elder Wang's guidance on another occasion. Very well, go ahead, Elder Wang replied. Lu Feng accepted the cloud-treading boots and made his way back to the auction hall. Meanwhile, Elder Wang turned to the shop assistant, Kai Ling, and instructed, should this young man return to our establishment for purchases in the future, grant him a 10% discount, understood? Kai Ling, taken aback, responded, yes, Elder Wang. I shall inform the shop of this. However, that individual appeared to be middle-aged. Why do you refer to him as a young man? Elder Wang chuckled. That is of no concern to you. Simply follow my instructions. Upon returning to the auction hall, Lu Feng discovered that the event had reached its final highlight. Li Yuelon addressed the audience, slowly articulating, esteemed friends, we now present the piece de resistance of this auction. And I believe many of you have already surmised what it is. Indeed, it is the 3 primary materials for the Foundation Establishment pill. With that, 2 female attendants approached, each carrying a wooden box. As Li Yuelon opened the boxes one by one, the spiritual herbs within were unveiled. The audience gasped in astonishment upon seeing the 3 herbs. Some spectators even rose from their seats, incredulously exclaiming, this is the spirit-nurturing grass, the Yuanhua blossom, and the cultivation fruit. I never imagined I would have the chance to behold all 3 primary materials for Foundation Establishment. It seems my visit here was fortuitous. At this moment, another spectator laughed heartily. I have spent the better part of my life searching for these 3 materials, and yet I find them here. Elderly, pray tell, what is the starting bid for these materials? I can hardly contain my eagerness to bid. The crowd was now brimming with excitement, and Lu Feng was no exception. Noticing that someone had already named the 3 materials, Li Yuelon continued, since everyone is so eager to bid, I shall not waste any more of your time. The starting price for these 3 materials is 1,000 low-grade spirit stones, with each subsequent bid increasing by no less than 50 low-grade spirit stones. Let the auction commence. As she concluded her announcement, an elderly man raised his hand, declaring, I bid 1,100 low-grade spirit stones. 1,100 is insufficient. I bid 1,002, 1,003, 1,004. The prices for the 3 materials began to soar, rapidly reaching 2,500 low-grade spirit stones. While this amount was not exorbitant, it was enough to deter many present. After all, 2,000 low-grade spirit stones constituted a significant fortune for a casual cultivator, and it was unlikely that an average practitioner would possess such wealth. Thus, it was anticipated that these items would ultimately be acquired by the prominent figures in the private boxes on the 4th floor. At this moment, Tang Ming from Box 3 spoke again, stating that since everyone was interested in the item, he would make an offer of 2,800 low-grade spirit stones. Upon hearing this, the cultivators seated on the 3rd floor furrowed their brows. Tang Ming had raised the price significantly, evidently aiming to stifle the bids from the casual cultivators. Observing this, Box 5 immediately chimed in with a bid of 2,900 low-grade spirit stones. 3,000. Box 2 quickly followed suit with their own bid. As the 3 boxes on the 4th floor continued to raise the stakes, Lu Feng on the 3rd floor frowned. The total value of his upper-grade chi-gathering pills and remaining spirit stones amounted to only 3,500 low-grade spirit stones. Given the current increase, he feared his handful of spirit stones might be insufficient. Moreover, his system space held few top-grade chi-gathering pills, leaving him with the only viable item being some exquisite body refinement pills. While Lu Feng pondered this, the bids from the boxes on the 4th floor escalated to 3,300 low-grade spirit stones. This price had already surpassed the intrinsic value of the 3 materials. After all, having materials does not guarantee the creation of pills. A failed refinement would render the materials worthless. Should the Lanyan Pill Pavilion ultimately auction a Foundation Establishment pill, the price would undoubtedly rise further. Once the bidding reached 3,003, an unusual silence fell over several boxes. In truth, the market price for the 3 primary materials of the Foundation Establishment pill hovered around 3,000 low-grade spirit stones, but ordinary casual cultivators lacked purchasing channels. Conversely, for disciples of large sects, acquiring a Foundation Establishment pill was not overly challenging. Additionally, once a direct disciple reached the pinnacle of the chi refinement stage, the sect would reward them with a Foundation Establishment pill, while inner disciples could exchange meritorious deeds for one. Thus, there was little need to spend such exorbitant sums. As a lengthy pause ensued, Lu Feng suddenly raised his hand and declared, I bid 3,400 low-grade spirit stones. At this proclamation, everyone present turned their gaze towards Lu Feng, with Li Weilong on the stage scrutinizing him closely. Upon realizing that Lu Feng concealed his cultivation and wore a shape-shifting mask, a subtle smile crept across her face. After all, his aura concealment technique and mask were effective only against cultivators of the same realm. Anyone a major realm above him could easily see through his disguise. Maintaining an expression of calm indifference, Lu Feng betrayed no hint of emotion under the scrutiny. At that moment, Box 2 suddenly spoke up, asserting, Our Heavenly Sword Sect has set its sights on this item, and we hope this esteemed friend will show us some consideration. After hearing this, Lu Feng remained unfazed, responding with remarkable composure. If the disciples of the Heavenly Sword Sect desire it, feel free to continue raising your bid. If your offer is higher, then the item shall naturally belong to you. Huh? Are you suggesting that you are disregarding the Heavenly Sword Sect's standing? Not at all. I merely acknowledge that the rules of the auction dictate that the highest bid wins. Wouldn't you agree, friends of the Heavenly Sword Sect? You. On the stage. Li Weilong noticed that the atmosphere between the two parties was becoming increasingly tense, prompting her to interject, Esteemed fellow cultivators, the auction is still in progress. If you have matters to discuss, it would be prudent to wait until the conclusion of the event. This esteemed friend has already raised the bid to 3,400 low-grade spirit stones. Is there anyone who would like to increase the offer? After her words, the second private room fell silent. The Heavenly Sword Sect is a second-tier sect in the southern region, although it cannot compare to the first-tier sects. It possesses formidable overall strength. While the individuals in the second private room dared to threaten Lu Feng, they refrained from acting recklessly in the presence of the Lan Yun Dan Pavilion, as they were aware that they were on the territory of the Haoxian sect. Seeing that no one had raised the bid for a considerable time, Li Weilong continued, Since there are no further bids, this item belongs to this esteemed friend. With that, 3 beautiful attendants brought the materials before Lu Feng. Li Weilong then clasped her hands in gratitude, saying, Dear friends, this auction has now concluded. Thank you all for your support. Lu Feng gazed at the 3 primary materials for the Foundation Establishment pills, his eyes brimming with excitement. Though he had only procured 2 items at this auction, they were both things he desperately needed. Observing the 3 attendants standing before him, Lu Feng promptly said, Ladies, I would appreciate a moment of your time. As they exchanged puzzled glances, Kai Ling approached slowly, saying, Sisters, and this esteemed friend, please follow me. The group then followed Kai Ling into the private room. Upon entering, Lu Feng was surprised to find Elder Wang still present, leisurely sipping tea. Lu Feng stepped forward and clasped his hands, saying, Elder Wang, it is a pleasure to see you again. Elder Wang smiled faintly, replying, Ah, I knew you would return. Are you here to exchange pills for spirit stones once more? Lu Feng nodded, acknowledging, Indeed, Elder, you are quite perceptive. He then produced over 100 high-grade gathering spirit pills. Elder Wang's eyes brightened at the sight. I did not expect you to possess so many high-grade gathering spirit pills. In that case, we shall calculate the price as before. Thank you, Elder Wang. After a thorough tally, Lu Feng presented 300 low-grade spirit stones, just enough to cover the cost of the materials. Once the transaction was complete, Lu Feng found himself with only 2 low-grade spirit stones remaining, having parted with all his high-grade gathering spirit pills. As Lu Feng prepared to leave, Elder Wang spoke once more, Young man, should you acquire more high-grade gathering spirit pills in the future, this shop will gladly purchase them at the same price. Hearing this, Lu Feng nodded in agreement, saying, Very well, I shall express my gratitude in advance, Elder. Ah, it is my pleasure.